Supervisor Patterson?
Lord, I want to thank you for blessing so many families during this holiday season, but also to be with those that were less fortunate than us and that were struggling during this time as well. We also ask for prayers for those who are going through those illnesses that are floating around our county at this time, to include our fellow board members. And finally, we also just take a moment here to remember a great man, a former president, Jimmy Carter, who just recently passed away, and a gentleman that we'll be remembering on Thursday. And thank you for his service to this great nation. All this we ask through Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen.
Before I ask for the adoption of this evening's agenda, I will be pulling item I, number 1, from this evening's agenda. That'll be going back through board, or through committee. Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move, you want approval of the agenda?
Yes.
I move for approval of tonight's agenda. Second.
Motion made and second for this evening for the adoption of this agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. This time will be allowed for person to present to express their opinions on any resolution or ordinance that appears on the agenda, as well as any matter over this body has jurisdiction. If you have anything, step forward to the microphones. We'll turn them on, state your name and address, and speak to the county board. Anyone from the back? Anyone wishing to speak to the county board tonight that's not on the agenda? Anyone? One there? Anyone on Zoom? No one on Zoom. That part is closed. Reports from committees, commissions, and boards. Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak on any commissions, boards, or committees? Everybody's looking up there. Who does? Oh, Supervisor Swan.
UW Fox Cities Campus Board of Trustees has a meeting on the 27th of January at 1 p.m. on the 1478 Midway Road property in Menasha. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Anyone else? Supervisor Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd given thought to addressing the board with regard to a tardiness of our packets not getting to. I got my packet today. Normally we
This
get
is
our.
not on the agenda tonight. I'm sorry, Supervisor Cox. This is just committees, commissions, and boards. I know what you're going to say, and there's a long story on the whole thing.
I'm not giving you the long story. I'm just trying to.
Well, there will be, but go ahead.
I'm trying to satisfy a conversation I had earlier today. I came and picked up my packet. I'm going to have my meeting on PNF Thursday, the 9th. We were considering not having it because I was so late with getting a packet. I think there are some issues, but we're trying to resolve them. We had a lot of interruption because of the holidays and whatever, and so I'm beyond that, and we're going to have our meeting again on Thursday, the 9th, for PNF. Okay?
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Is there anyone on Zoom? No? Okay, that part is closed. Excuse board members. We have Supervisor Hancock Cook, Supervisor Dowling. I think she might be on Zoom. I'm not. She's on Zoom. Supervisor Stafford might be on Zoom, I do believe. He was going to be. And Supervisor Gabbert. Now, them are the only ones that I heard from. I don't know if the clerk heard from anyone or anyone else has, but that's the only ones I have heard from. Okay. Business items and resolution. Okay, next thing on the agenda is Neighborhood Investment Fund Grant Presentation. First be up Solutions Recovery, Megan Edwards with Executive Director. I believe they've got a timer up here, so.
That's my job.
And Ethan's in charge, so.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Megan Edwards. I'm the Executive Director at Solutions Recovery. It has been probably a year since I have presented in front of the county board, and and I'm done.
Sorry about that.
No worries, all good. We've had some changes at Solutions in leadership, so I just wanted to address that. I know that our former executive director, Trevor Fenrick, was the one addressing you in the past about the Neighborhood Investment Fund grant. I have been working with Solutions since 2018 and have kind of worked my way up in the organization. I was the program director for a lengthy period of time and worked side by side with Trevor on expanding our programming. So I'm pretty in the know about what we have going on at Solutions, and I'm excited to serve at this capacity. Okay, and I know that there's new supervisors, so this is great, an opportunity to talk about what we do at Solutions. We have 3 overarching programs. We have our Sober Living program, our Recovery Center, and our peer support team. So with Sober Living, we offer 80 beds in Oshkosh. Recently just acquired the old Christine Ann building, which I'll talk about more. It's a 6-month program, transitional living. Typically, we see folks that are coming from residential treatment, so it's that transitional supportive living after treatment, after staying some time in jail, prison, things like that. And the 6-month time frame, it kind of depends, but usually people end up staying a little bit longer than that. We also have supportive housing after that. So with the 80 beds, we also have, I don't know what it is, I'd have to look at my numbers, I'd say 20 probably, dedicated to our sober housing program, which I'll talk about in a minute too. That is after completing our primary sober living program, and that's long-term supportive housing for folks that are in recovery. Our recovery center is kind of the heart of our operations. It's where Solutions started in 2007. The major change from the Neighborhood Investment Fund grant was a large expansion project. So I'll get to that in a minute. But our recovery center, we are a peer-led organization, which means that all of our staff are people with lived experience with addiction and recovery. So all of us have that background. It's something kind of unique. We offer addiction recovery services while also empowering and leveraging our recovery community to do that work. And then lastly, we have peer support, which was something that's pretty new to Solutions, and that was started in 2022 as our peer response team program, which later morphed into the STAR program, which I'm sure has been talked about, and at a different time, I am very eager to talk about that program as well. But we have 24/7 peer support in Winnebago County with a response rate of 30 minutes per any call. So on to the Neighborhood Investment Fund grant, we received $1.5 million to add sober living to the community. So it allowed us to purchase 3 homes for the sober living program. And it also helped us acquire the old 206 Algoma Boulevard, which is the old Christine Ann Center, which allows for an additional 28 beds. There was $500,000 of ARPA funds from the Spirit Fund that also went towards the acquisition of the Christine Ann building, which is now the Sober Living Center. I don't know if it will ever lose its name. I'm still thinking Christine Ann is the building that we own. I don't know. It's going to take some time. But anyway, and then also the expansion of our recovery center as well. So sober living, I've already kind of talked about what the program is about. But it kind of shows where we started in 2015 with sober living and where we are now. We have grown drastically over the last 3 years, really to support the community need, and it's been really cool to be a part of. And then the Christine Ann Center, again, will accommodate another 28 beds. Just an update on that. We did take occupancy in October of last year. We had to do a couple renovations, a few maintenance things specifically with the carriage house. So we started to fill the main house first, which is full as of today. And then the carriage house, we just started to fill it in January 1. So I think we have 4 or 5 beds available right now, with 6 more to come next week. So we are already pretty much getting to full capacity with our sober living program. With the acquisition of the old Christine Ann Building 206 Algoma, we were able to use our other houses to expand our sober housing program. So we expanded our sober living and our sober housing with that expansion. Here's some data of our residents from sober living. So we have 51% reporting that they were diagnosed with a mental illness. 70% reported that they've been incarcerated before. 71% are unemployed. 56% came from residential treatment. 45% are on probation, and I think it's 70% identify as homeless when they come into our program. So this is a demographic that is vulnerable. There's a lot of intersectionality with the vulnerabilities, but I'm excited to share with you some of our successes with the program. We ask a lot of questions and we have a lot of data, but I wanted to share these highlights. On the left, you'll see the number of residential treatments that our folks that are coming into sober living report they have completed prior to coming into our program. And what I found astounding is about a third reported going to 5+ residential treatments before coming into contact with solutions. That's a lot. And then on the right is the substance use reported, which really does reflect what we're seeing in the jail as well as the community. So it's kind of a split between alcohol, methamphetamine, and opioids. And then upon graduation, 100% reported that they were confident in their sobriety, maintaining their sobriety after they leave us. And then 100% reported learning lifelong recovery tools, and then 90% are still sober in the community today, and that's a huge deal. We are really proud with that number. We feel that the community partnerships that we have really allow this to happen. So we have partnerships with Nova. Human Services is a huge, huge advocate and helps us to be able to really get people in that primary care and then transitional into the sober living. All right, and then the Recovery Center expansion. The majority of the Neighborhood Investment Fund grant went to this. Our old building was not ADA accessible. We did not have an elevator or anything. And if any of you have been to Solutions, and I'll show a picture in a minute, when you walked in, it's a bi-level. So you either go up or down, stairs right away. And honestly, kind of intimidating. Like if I came to Solutions and you think about the series of events that lead somebody to come to our door, there's a lot that happens before they come to our door, right? And then they get there and they're like, where do I go? There's nobody here. We probably lost people that way. So I just wanted to say and express my gratitude that the county decided to take on the Neighborhood Investment Fund grant. It has drastically changed our landscape, and it has drastically enabled us to help more people. So I'm so grateful for it. I get to see it. It's like a dance, a song and dance every day when I come into work. I see it working. The Welcome Center is beautiful. It's open. There's the good lighting, all of it. It just feels great. And then we also have a lift as well. So as you can see here, when you first walk in, we have a recovery coach greeting people. They're the eyes and ears of Solutions. They get to, really kind of see what's going on with somebody when they're walking through the doors. That's our new and improved coffee counter, which was very old school at Solutions prior. That was kind of what we were built on. And then also the lift to become ADA accessible. That was our old building. So when you walked in, that's what it looked like. Other recovery center expansions, we have 2 additional office spaces, which were very necessary. We were all sharing offices before, so this is really great. Some of us had 3 or 4 people to a very small office. I didn't mention this on here, but we added 2 additional spaces for meetings to happen with recovery coaches and folks that come into the center. We added 2 bathrooms and then also a dedicated conference space. And storage. We really needed storage, so that was really helpful as well. Okay, any questions?
Supervisor Pacetto.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 2 real quick questions for you. And thank you for that brief presentation, by the way. In terms of the long-term housing after folks get out of the your first program. They're there for 6 months. But where is this long-term housing?
They're all residential homes. So all of them are located, I can't say all of them, the majority of them are located within 1 mile walking distance of Solutions Recovery Center.
Okay.
Yep.
And then they still have service that is ongoing, much like the STAR program, to make sure that they're part of that 90.2% recovery.
Yeah,
or sober.
absolutely. After they leave the sober living, it's kind of a step down in programming, right? So we're trying to encourage, getting back into the community and feeling supported. But they have program requirements to keep them in, I guess, good standing within the sober housing program. And you can stay in that program for up to 2 years, and families can also be in that program.
Thank you. And then the other question was, you mentioned that people who come to you have already been through up to 5 other assistance programs before they find you. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit on who, and I don't want you to throw anybody under the bus, but who had they gone to before they come to you?
It's a really good question. So about 30% of the incoming residents for sober living reported going to 5+ residential treatments. Here's the thing. There's all sorts of different residential treatments across the state. I think all of them in our area are great when we're dealing with the disease of addiction. It's a chronic relapsing brain disease. So even though somebody may have gone to a 28-day treatment, maybe they stayed sober for a year afterwards and there was a relapse. Maybe they returned to use the day they got out of treatment, much like my own story back in 2013. So oftentimes, it takes multiple attempts in order for somebody to find long-term sustaining sobriety. So I'm not surprised at that number, but also, it does say something, I think, about really what we're up against. And that's a disease that's powerful and scary.
Thank you.
Supervisor Holt.
Thank you very much. I appreciated
Can you
your...
use your mic, please?
I don't even know where it is. Thank you. I very much appreciated your presentation as well. I have appreciated hearing about the STAR program through a number of presentations. I am a new board member and would love to understand what other support you would need from the County Board of Supervisors if you could wave a magic wand and get what you wanted.
That's a great question. I would love to connect later about that. That sounds great. Unless, do you want me to answer on the spot? Because I can try to come up with something,
Well,
but.
if you already have a wish list, yes, but otherwise, feel free to share with us at a later date.
Wonderful. There's lots of ideas for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Swan.
Megan, thanks for your presentation. So the county gave $500,000 in ARPA funds for the acquisition. Can you tell me what the price paid for the Christine Ann Center building was?
The Christine Ann Center was priced at $1 million.
Did they ask that? Was that the asking price, and did you pay the asking price? Did you get an appraisal on the property when you bought it?
Yes, we got an appraisal, inspection, the whole deal.
Okay, good. That's good to know. Thank you.
Yep.
Supervisor Burrow.
Director Edwards, great presentation. Question for you. You talk here about the 90% of your graduates are sober today. Do you have any sense, are they becoming contributing members of society? They have a purpose, they have a job? Any insight beyond the fact that they're sober, which is great? Any comment on that?
Wonderful question, and I would love to answer it because recovery is more than just abstinence, right? And we talk about this all the time. It's an internal shift, it's a change. What I have seen is it's kind of impossible to maintain good sobriety without becoming a productive member of society and without contributing to society and being of service. That's a part of the principles that we teach in our program. What's really great about our tracking system is that all of us have lived experience. We're all in recovery, so we see people, right, in the recovery community all the time. We know who our graduates are and who are maintaining their sobriety because we see them all the time. So I can speak just from experience, and it's anecdotal, but still, that I get to see with my own 2 eyes people's lives transformed. They're returning to their families. They're, absolutely maintaining employment, have their own housing, things like that. That's a big deal for all of us. When we get sober, oftentimes those are the things that are impacted, and those are the big goals that people have when they first come into sober living. So those are the things that we work on with people. Great question.
Thank you.
Anyone else that we don't want to miss anyone? Who? Oh, I'm sorry. Supervisor Laux?
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. I guess I have two questions. You said that the people came from out of the jail or out of prison. Are those, oh, you also said, is there any way for somebody who hasn't committed a lockupable crime to get help through this program? And then I'll just tell you what my second question is too. You mentioned that it was also for families, and I'm wondering if you could elaborate that on a little.
Yeah, absolutely. Great questions. So anybody can apply for the sober living program. It does not necessarily have to come through a referral process. Those are just oftentimes the avenues that we see the most of. And oftentimes when somebody maybe currently in use, right? A lot of the times they need medical clearance, they need to go through a detox procedure, things like that. And oftentimes their level of care actually is going to reach higher than a sober living atmosphere. So typically what will happen is they'll go and get an assessment, and with that assessment it'll show residential treatment is probably your best bet. They don't have to take that, but if they do, great. And if they don't, it's not like we would turn them away. It's something that we would still look at. But oftentimes we go with the recommendations of the clinical counselors from Human Services, and that's what we try to support and advocate for. That being said, anyone can apply. So it doesn't have to come through any other avenue besides just self-referral. Second question, remind me again, so sorry.
Families?
Oh, yes, families. So our primary sober living is not set up for families yet. That is something that we've had discussions about, our board has had discussions about, maybe down the pipeline. Sober housing is different. That first primary 6 months, people oftentimes need to really focus on their recovery. That's their number one priority. But come into sober housing and longer term sobriety, it's time to, reunite families and get them back together. So that's the piece with sober housing. So the 20 or 25 beds, don't quote me, I'd have to look back at exactly how many beds are between the two. We have homes that are set up for families if that works out as far as bed space and availability.
Thank you.
Yep.
Supervisor Patterson?
Again, thanks for the presentation. I've had the opportunity to meet a number of graduates from the Solution Program, and one of the things that I get a sense of is they really appreciate the peer support. And there's things like, what is that called, drug court graduations and things like that, where they really band together. Could you expand on that a little bit? Because it seems like that's a really important piece of this.
I really appreciate everybody's questions. I wish I had a 30-minute presentation because I would have covered all of this, but thank you so much for putting this out there because I love it. So, peer support. It's a big deal, and it's something, honestly, that we haven't really had a seat at the table up until a few years ago. East Coast, West Coast, peer support, recovery coaching has been around for a long time. Everything slowly starts to make its way to the Midwest, right? And here we are. So it's like 5 years ago-ish is when I started to notice peer support really becoming something solid in our area. And I'm so grateful for it because peer support, the idea of it, has been around for a long time. I mean, it's been around for almost 100 years when you think about it. When you look back to old school Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, things like that, all of the A's, right? That's peer support. That's what that is. But it was never really identified as a profession up until, in my just experience, probably 5 to 7 years ago. So we're really just entering. The value of peer support is just this. So when we're looking at the disease of addiction or substance use disorder, whatever terminology you choose to care to use, it's a disease that really has a window of opportunity, and that window of opportunity is oftentimes really short. And what I mean by that is when somebody gets to the spot where they're like, I want to get help, significant events have happened, consequences usually, right? Like something pushes them to that point, and they say, I want help. Sometimes people are only in that space for like 3 hours, okay? Or a day. Sometimes 2 weeks, but I see it as a really small window of opportunity. What I love about peer support is that the rapport is already there, right? Like I sit in front of somebody and say, hey, I've been in your shoes. Literally, I go into the jail. I'm a drug court graduate, so I have that background as well. And I can say, hey, I've gone through that program. And they look at me and they're like, like the lights just go on right away. And I have clinical experience, so I have both, and I have both perspectives, and they both bring really good things to the table. But when I was in my clinical role, I didn't oftentimes share my lived experience, and it took some time to build the rapport. What I love about the peer support is it's right away. It's the window of opportunity, you get right in front of them, and they trust you, and it's beautiful, and then we can start to help navigate these systems, because they're confusing, right? Like, it's confusing to know where to go, who to talk to. Does insurance cover this? Does insurance cover that? How do I get an assessment? And we can help be kind of like, I mean, honestly, like the lubricant between systems. So that's where it is. It's like we catch them with, hey, I've been there. I get you. All right, you trust me. All right, let's go. Like, let's get this started. And then the drug court program is absolutely beautiful. I mean, I can't say, anything negative about it. It absolutely saved my life. There's a lot of people in our community that it saved their lives. I mean, it's an alternative to prison, right? Like, that's where most of us would have gone. And here we are, and I'm standing in front of a board of county board of supervisors, right, talking about it and being able to have this type of impact. Our lived experience is our biggest asset.
Supervisor Nelson.
I know when the people from the Christiane Center made the pitch to move into the next building, maintenance was cited as one of their big concerns. And you mentioned that you had done some stuff prior to moving in. And of course, it's a new building for you. I'm sure you're excited and we're happy that you've got more beds and so forth. Do you anticipate any significant long-term maintenance issues with a older building like that?
You're right on the money, yes. So the inspection was done and everything, we're aware of kind of what's going on with the building. We're very excited to be there. It is massive. I kind of joke about if we wanted to change all of the light bulbs, it would take a whole day of work because there's so many nooks and crannies. The biggest need is there's galvanized pipes in the entire facility, and that's going to all have to be replaced at some point. That's the biggest expense that we can see at this point. There's a roof that we're probably going to have to redo. Our maintenance coordinator is fabulous and can do most of that himself, which is awesome. But maintenance is a big deal with a building of that age, and it's really a big deal with all of our properties because we're a mile within this, Solutions Recovery. We know where that is, 621 Evans Street. It's a lot of old homes. So maintenance is definitely on our radar currently.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Not seeing any on Zoom? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And next up will be Oshkosh Kids Foundation.
All right, thank you, everyone. I'm Will Depius, Board President for Oshkosh Kids Foundation. I want to thank you again for letting us participate in the Neighborhood Investment Fund grant. It was a big deal to be able to help us build the tiny house village, and I'll get to a photo of that and kind of show you about that here shortly. So our mission is to help kids and families in the community who are in desperate need with immediate needs that they have. And one of the things as we started doing our work that we came upon, especially as we rolled into COVID, was how many homeless families there are in the community. So initially we, as the organization was founded, was helping families with stays in motels. Some places that a lot of folks in this room wouldn't want to stay tonight were places where we could get people housed. But at some point that becomes not sustainable from a fundraising perspective, and it's a bit limiting as to how much you're going to see from the families on the other side of that. So we ended up coming up with a concept to help house families for a longer period of time and also have programming on site to help the families to be able to get acclimated back into the community. So there's a list of who our board is from Oshkosh Kids. And maybe just to speak about the need a little bit, over half of students on the north side of Oshkosh are below the poverty line. I think across the entire school district, it's over 40%, which, you know, the Oshkosh School District has over about 9,000 students, so 35 to 100 to 4,000 students that are below the poverty line that are school age. That doesn't count the young ones that are younger than that. So here's a graph historically of what the level of homeless children in the school district has been over the last period of time. Over the last decade, it's averaged about 200 homeless students. And a little less visible in the community, this is normally families that are broken apart where they're couch surfing at friends, families, kind of wherever they can get housed. We've had families moving to the tiny house village that had been living in cars. We had one of our first families that moved in had been living in a tent out at the Osh Vegas fairgrounds out across the highway in February a couple of years ago, and their only source of heat was a little small space heater. So it looks a little different than other homeless situations in the community, but still a major need to try to help this part of our population. So here's an aerial shot of what the village looks like. We started construction in summer of '22. Your funds from the Neighborhood Investment Fund grant helped us build the community center, which is the center point here in the picture. We have 32 units on site. We are for serving families, 1 to 4 or 2 to 4 members can live in a given unit. Most of our residents receive some sort of rental assistance, which is in place for up to 2 years. And as they become employed, they pay 30% of their income towards the rent. And then as that voucher is expiring, we're assisting them, moving into the regular rental market and, getting all sorts of services while they're on site. We have 2 case managers that work full-time at the Tiny House Village. And part of the funds that helped us build the community center give them a place to have office. And then also in there, let me get to, so inside here, you'll see we have a pretty large main room, which has been great for, we've had groups in the community bring in meals for the families once a month, cooking classes in there. It's also an area for large group settings for classes for our residents that are being done by other nonprofits here in town. So our vision when we were building this was to have a place for families to come in, catch a breath a little bit, start working with people to help kind of rebuild their life, have services being brought on site because we have enough people where nonprofits can come to the site to be working with the families, having the case management on site to be working with the families to continue to nudge them along and get them connected to the right service providers in the community that can help them with what they need. So each family situation is a little bit different depending upon how they got to us. But, helping us build the community center was a big deal to be able to deliver the services that our families need to be able to dig out of whatever led them to us being homeless and to be able to move on from that and be more productive in the community. So again, that's some of the photos of what the community center looks like. Here's what a unit looks like. So all the units are basically the same. They're a little different color on the outside, but essentially they're all the same on the inside. They're 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, a full kitchen. They're just under 400 square feet, so they're snug. And as kids get older and taller, probably becomes a good time to move on. It is a little bit challenging to try to find places for families to move to in the regular rental market. As you see the new projects that are getting built in town, a lot of those rents are higher than what they're paying by us. Our rent is a little over $1,000 a month, and that includes all utilities, Wi-Fi, internet, and a landline phone service. So we do have laundry facilities on site, and there's a small playground. So a bunch of services that we've been able to provide. So thank you again for being able to help us deliver that needed support. Here's a quick floor plan that kind of helps you look at what it looks like when you come in. The Ceilings are fairly high, so it does feel a little bit larger. You know, square footage wise, it's about the same size as a hotel room, you know, average hotel room. However, with the tall ceilings and the white walls and everything, it does feel significantly larger than that. And if I go out to here, you can better see where we're located. You know, to the left here is Oshkosh North High School, St. Vincent de Paul, and the Community Food Pantry. We have a lot of services of other nonprofits that are relatively nearby us. We're also on the bus line. We do have it now set up that busing is coming to the site to take kids to school, especially the little ones walking to Oak Lawn. You know, you get some cold, bitter days here in winter. That gets to be a long walk for the little ones. So, again, can't thank you enough. I could talk for a really long time, but I know we got a time limit here and probably have some questions about the project, so be happy to take those.
Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Will, for being here. So I was wondering, one, you said you have 32 units. Are they all full?
We, last I checked, I think we had 26 full, and we had a couple applicants coming in. So one thing with the voucher program is vouchers, you know, when a family applies and gets approved, they have a defined period of time before they have to reapply again. So it doesn't work the same as maybe other programs where you can just have this real long wait list.
Sure. Okay.
And then we've had some families graduate recently. So we've had some of that as well, where families have been with us about 18 months, have gotten their life situated, have gotten employment, gotten to the point where they've been able to move out. So those are good things to have a couple empty units.
Yeah, great. I was so the next question was right in line there. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how many families may have graduated through, and I was also feeling the same thing you were kind of saying about the regular rental market being really dicey right now, and was wondering if you could just talk a little bit more about how successful or not, what challenges, gaps still exist there from getting folks from the tiny home to the regular rental market.
Yeah, I would say, you know, a couple things. It, you know, depending upon how much trauma families are coming to us from, you know, the amount of time we have on the rental voucher may not be enough time to get them kind of through everything that they need to recover from that led them to that situation with us. So sometimes the time can be a challenge. With some families, how hard are they working? You know, I mean, we're going to have that no matter what we do. You know, we want to help all the families that come in. We probably err on the side of being forgiving to giving families second chances to come in, because, you know, we're focused on trying to help the kids and help them have a better future than maybe how it was before they got to us. So we probably err on the side there of, you know, not swinging a hard hammer on every nail, you know, but so sometimes that is a barrier. You know, the rental market, you know, I mean, vacancy is still incredibly low in the community. So even if they've had a clean record with us but have past evictions versus 10 applicants that don't, you know, it's still going to be hard for us to get our families chosen. So, you know, that is going to be a barrier for us long term, and, you know, that's something we need to work on more with the landlord market, in my mind. So we're working on that, but, you know, it's going to take some time.
Great, thank you. And then my last question is, you talked about the students getting busing to Oak Lawn. I guess, like, walk me through, if somebody comes in to, you know, gets accepted and their kids weren't going to Oak Lawn, is Oak Lawn the only option, or do you have ways that they could get to their home school?
I think it's called the McKinney-Vento law, which if you were homeless and whatever your home school is, you get busing provided to get you to that school. So that was an example, but yeah, you know, whatever their home school is, their busing's provided to them.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks for
You
being
bet.
here.
Supervisor Cox.
I think I got rats in my line. I'll get it up. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I'm curious as to the stability that you can provide for the kids over time, and the minimum and maximum that you can put on a voucher for the people staying in these places. How long? What is the longest?
Duration?
The longest duration, yeah.
Yeah, so it's up to 2 years. And then the voucher follows the family. So the initial concept was we expected our residents to be with us for 18 months. And then as they move back into the regular rental market, continue to receive services from case management from our staff on site, so that there's a transition period for them leaving the tiny house village to back into the rental market.
Yeah.
In practicality, that part is a little tricky as to just from, can we get them accepted into the regular rental market quick enough for that full concept to work? And that part has been a little tougher than we initially thought. So sometimes it's just taken a little bit longer for the families to find access to housing in the regular rental market.
Thank you.
Yep.
Supervisor Nelson, did you get your question answered?
Yes, sir.
Supervisor Facetto, did you get your question answered? Okay, I do not see anyone else. Oops. Supervisor Holt?
Hi. I've recently started understanding better some of the impacts on families in trying to get housing locally in the rental market. And can you just quickly give us the 5, I know evictions you already mentioned. Can you give us some of the 5 biggest hurdles?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is past record of residents. Like some of the things we screen out for, if there's been violent offense, harm to other individuals, if you have been manufacturing drugs, if you've damaged property, or some of the things that we screen out, because, we want a safe environment for the residents,
Right.
especially the kids on our site. And a lot of the adults that are on our site are single moms, so we want to have a safe environment. And we've had a little over 100 people that were previously homeless that have been living with us. So it's a lot of people we need to care for and keep safe. So those are some of the things we screen out. But then you also have, in the regular rental market, people screening out for non-payment and evictions, and there's other things as well, but those are probably the highest priority ones that lead to people not getting access to housing.
Do you run into additional issues with not having a credit score, credit history, having a felony conviction? You mentioned dangerous violence, but felony convictions could be other things as well.
Yeah, I'm sure for others, that's a problem.
Okay.
So again, your past record matters, and
Yeah.
some of those things you don't think about when you're 16, 17, 18, and then all of a sudden you're 23, got a couple kids, and how do I undo what I've done? And I think that's how some people spiral and get to us with a lot of trauma. So we have been able to help some families recover from that by giving them some stability, help connect them to some employers we know that have a environment that can help them thrive.
That's good.
That are looking to work. So
Thank
that's
you.
what we're trying to do.
Supervisor Laux?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. If somebody has an eviction on their record because they lack the funding to pay for their home, and you're screening them out because they have an eviction, that seems like a problem.
We don't.
You don't, okay, because you said it
No,
earlier.
I was
If they had
referring-
eviction and then you had like 10 applicants and this one had an eviction. and
I
you
was
had
giving
10
an
other-
example of
Okay.
what happens in the regular rental market.
Okay, even during your presentation.
Yep.
All right, good.
Okay, not seeing anyone else. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you again for the support. We truly appreciate all the help.
Next is Habitat for Humanity, Tom Simmons.
Hello, my name is Tom Simon. I'm the Executive Director for Habitat for Humanity. And before I begin my presentation, I wanted to say thank you to the County Board of Supervisors, but I also wanted to say on the record we should be thanking Lindsay Erickson. For any of you who are new, she was a county health worker. She was the one who actually wrote the grant. And we often complain about county employees or something. She brought $10.3 million of financing to housing programs in this county. So, I've just real briefly, most people know Habitat for Humanity. Yes, Jimmy Carter just died. He did not start Habitat for Humanity, but he was one of our greatest volunteers. And over 29 million people worldwide have been helped in getting housing, and over 50-some million people have volunteered with Habitat. It's one of the largest volunteer programs in the world. And here in Oshkosh, we have been here since 1989. I've been with Habitat for 13 years. I've been the executive director here for going on 7 years. And there are 49 homes, and this grant helped us build a number of them, and we'll cross up to about 50-some homes with this grant and with work that we're going to be doing. We've added $11 million of real estate value to this county. Our homeowners have paid nearly $200,000 a year of taxes. What's great about this part of the program is that our investments in us, the people when they own the homes, you're getting the money back. Homeownership is something that is fantastic, but it has an obligation as well. And trust me, they all got their tax bills. It was very interesting to see their faces when we explained that to them. So under this grant, and I think why we won, it was for workforce development. What was done here is the model of the grant was a funnel where people were going from lower places in the housing continuum to home ownership. We were the end of it. And the whole model is that someone can be sleeping a day by day tonight in 7 to 8 years owning a home. And why do I know that that can happen? Because one of our homeowners did sleep in day by day years ago. So we are that hope. We are that end of the line. Under this grant, we received $2.4 million, and we did two great things with it. First, we built houses. We built 8 homes, and I'm proud to report that the last one was just finished. And we talk about the things we built, but it's also the people we build with. This was just an etching in 2021. It is now 6 new homes with the 2 that we had originally built on the corner here. This is Teresa. She's a refugee from Sudan. She now has a job at Aurora, helping in housekeeping. She has 3 teenage boys that she came to this country because she didn't want them taken into militia in the Civil War. They will be great workers. They are some of the best behaved men I've ever seen. Hire them. This is Joe and Jennifer Davis. They came from the South. Neither side of their family had ever owned a home. You see, Jennifer has got sunglasses on because she's going blind. She used to run a food truck. She is learning to become a caterer we help build on her kitchen a minute strip where she has all the utensils in a particular order. She caters for us, for Habitat. Another workforce development. This is Abdel, and his wife Mesa is just off the picture. They are refugees from the Syrian civil war. He is now a machinist working with Amcor. His children are some of the best behaved children ever. Again, our investment is the housing gets the people into this community for the jobs that we need to fill. Hundreds of people volunteered on building these 8 homes that we did. That's getting these people into the community. It's getting them into neighborhoods they wouldn't go. Grove Street, our home, it's all one block built by Habitat. It is behind Bella Vista. I am proud of those homes. They will last 120 to 150 years. And I'm the last one, we're giving the keys on January 23rd. If you want to see it, come talk to me. But here was where it really got exciting. We were building homes and the grant accelerated it. This is Springview Acres. I came speaking to you some time ago. This is a subdivision that we were able to do. The grant paid for Habitat approximately 60% of everything that we were doing. But what you did is you allowed us to build the homes and build this. We will be building our first 4 homes in this subdivision in April, beginning that. What I'm also proud of is 6 of these lots out of money that we raised on our own, we will be selling to other developers so other homes can get built, not just Habitat. There is where in Amro it is, and what happens with this, the beauty of our program is as we build the homes, we build them with the families, not for them, and that they buy the homes from us. That gives us mortgages that we can sell to banks and raise the money. In other words, we are in a unique position that the investment that you gave can keep rolling forward. I call it the slinky model. And if I came back, there will be other yellow blocks in Amro where we are already looking for land. So in the future, what did you do with this? I would argue that it takes us a little bit to get rolling because I will give lots of thanks to Lou Shear, to John Damo, for Ethan. It took a while to help Amro understand what a great investment this was. And anytime you say that you're coming in as Habitat, there are always questions. And it is politics. And anytime anything is changing, you can expect the neighbors will always have issues and concerns. And the final story is on the Grove Street, Jennifer Davis took all of her neighbors to go to the next neighborhood association meeting. And it was so amusing because they were all welcoming the people that they had been asking questions about 3 years later, or 3 years earlier. Finally, one other thing, because you may have seen it in the Herald and it's buzz on the radio today, Washington School. We are fortunate because of some in-kind gifts that we got. We had $62,000 left of the grant yet. And we have until December 31st of this year. Washington School is being abandoned. We were working on Department of Administration. Up to 900 schools in the state of Wisconsin, according to the Evers administration, will be remodeled, repurposed, or abandoned in the next 10 years. There are other Habitat affiliates watching what happens with this because we are buying this parcel, you will hear with the city. It is being torn down and it will be turned into 18 homes. This is the first time this has been done in our area. And again, you helped us get there. I give you my word. We've leveraged every dollar you've given it, and the return will keep on coming. So with that, any questions? All right, not good.
Oh, you might have a few, just hold on. Supervisor Belleville. Supervisor Belleville.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for coming. I am very grateful you brought up the Washington School. I live about a block and a half away. And full disclosure, I am on the Oshkosh Planning Commission, and we talked a little bit about that tonight. If I'm correct, it's 9 homes will be you, and then 9 homes will be the city of Oshkosh. And I'm happy this is like the 3rd time I've seen you, and I feel like I'm your biggest ambassador at this point because I think everybody gets Habitat confused on what it is. And I've kind of got it beaten into me that there are great families, and I know they're going to come to our neighborhood. They are great homes, which is going to be awesome for our neighborhood, and especially in that area. So I'm very excited. I even told people at our Planning Commission meeting earlier today to, if they want to know more, watch you speak tonight. So again, we're grateful, and I'm happy that we had a little change left over to push that forward. So thank you so much.
No, and I thank Lou, I thank John Damo, and I thank Paul Kaiser for working on this, on just the allocation. This is leveraging it again, because Washington School is a very complex project. I think for the city, we're really trying to work so that it is not just Habitat. There's always questions. To have it both private and the Habitat. The other thing I would say is always remember the Habitat people are employed, they're working, they are paying for this, and they're just homeowners. So I think Washington School, I know that La Crosse, Chippewa Falls, Menominee are watching what is happening with this situation. If we can make it work here, others will copy this model.
Supervisor Swan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tom, I just want to dig into the numbers again a little bit. On this, this Washington School project, what will the land acquisition cost be and then the total project cost estimate?
Yeah, right now, when we first went with it, the school district, at first there was no bidders. At first, Habitat was going to try to do this alone. I'll freely admit that it was one of those where my board thought it was just too risky to go it alone. That's why we went with the partnership with the city.
Okay.
To finally answer your question, $75,000, that's what the school is. That's practically giveaway, but we wanted to give it something of value.
It's land and building, 75?
Yes, 75,000, because frankly, a 1959 school building just doesn't have any worth. There was nobody who wanted that building.
Will the school stay or will it be demolished?
The school will be demolished. That's
Okay.
unique to our model. I did work with other Habitat affiliates. I've come up with a model of if a cost per unit is this, remodel the school. If it's higher than that, tear it down.
Right.
Washington School is the first will be an attempt, tear it down. All in, from beginning to end, you're looking at about $4.5 million on this project. That is going to be raised over multiple years. Habitat will do some of its own. I'm talking to banks right now. We have two things, and I could say where the county could help us. One of the biggest problems for private developers is when you buy the land, you are then looking at multiple years before you can get anything built and get the return. What would be really great help from the state is zero interest or some sort of loan where you wouldn't be paying interest on it while you're going through all the public meetings you have to get it developed. One of the things that was very difficult with AMRO, almost 2 years to get through all the approval processes and whatnot. And I see people nodding, they're working for the county. It was very close sometimes. Could we get it through? And on Washington School, I've been working on that project for 15 months, and we still haven't brought down the school yet.
If I could ask one quick follow-up, what is the square footage of the units and how large will the lots be?
Yeah, we're working on really Habitat. We're emphasizing the starter home. We're really looking at the model right after World War II. If you look at the starter home of that time period, most homes were 1,000 to 1,200 square feet. We are looking at generally 3-bedroom units, single story. We are really trying to make them fit the character of the neighborhood. I'll freely admit, in the planning department with the Oshkosh, one of the big sides where they wanted them built according to design book. That was a very difficult issue. We finally got that resolved. But again, generally think immediately after World War II, 1949 to 1963, that was the great home building period in this country, and we're trying to recreate that again with our models.
Supervisor Holt.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I very much appreciate it. I was on the Neenah Joint School District School Board, and you might have read in the newspaper that Neenah is going through a similar
Shattuck, yes.
structure and changes. And, you know, I guess I'm wondering if you have a playbook, or that's what we called it in the corporate world, a playbook for how you go about addressing community concerns, because I believe the city of Neenah and the school board in particular could really benefit from a better understanding of that. And if you don't mind, I'd like to make sure they connect with you all.
Yeah, I contemplated for tonight's presentation to have our upcoming homeowners speak. I think the reality is people fear affordable housing, but you don't fear a book.
Right.
She is one of the greatest ladies you would ever meet. She is, once you personalize it.
Yep.
The problem is we always have this fear, and you always hear the same things. We have issues, we have concerns. We're not against it. but then it's always, how will it affect our property tax values?
Right.
The reality is they will go up. And the Stevens Park School with the Washington School, with the Shattuck, it was just that opposition could get going. And we talk about NIMBY. Lou is working on a project, and John Damo is working it. How can we get it that people are more accepting? If there was anything you could do on any of the roles that you are on, is sometimes we give too much voice to those that are opposing,
Right.
and not enough counter back to them of, have you met anyone like this? Have you really seen a Habitat home? That would be, I think in the Shattuck, once you're behind the 8 ball, it's really hard. In Omro, I'll freely admit, we started with some opposition, and now they are some of our biggest supporters. And if I may just say on that one, because we started having our families volunteer in the community.
Yep. Makes a big difference.
Yep.
Supervisor Hintz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tom, thanks again for the presentation. Over the years, I've always admired your passion, your energy, the excitement that you have with these projects. I remember back when we first started with the Grove Street here in Oshkosh, and how the neighbors were fighting against that over porches.
Yes.
Remember, it was, a simple thing like a porch in the front.
But if I could, that was the neighborhood association that they all went to.
Yeah.
And they were hugged like they have been. Yes.
And it started out that everybody was so against it, and now from what I've heard from you, everybody is so for that. They're glad to have these people in the neighborhood. They're really happy with the properties. They look great. They fit in. And the fact that you're rolling this over and you're continuing to do this, and you've expanded to Omro, and you're doing all these things. You're looking at a big project with the Washington School property. I have all the faith in the world that you guys are going to do this correctly. And I think that was some of the best money that we could have spent as far as the county board on any of the nonprofits that we put money towards. We see such a return on this Habitat for Humanity investment. And I just wanted to thank you for all of us.
Thank you. I want Washington School to work because, like I said, it could be the model for the other parts of the state. If you just think about it, where are we going to build in the future? If you talk to the private builders, what we've decided our role is going to be is we're going to be the fools that go in and go through that 2.5-year process. It is tough. But I will tell you in Omro, as soon now as we put the lots up for sale, builders will build, and they will build quickly. I think what the city is modeling with what they want to do with the workforce development program, I think in Washington School you could see as many as 6 to 12 homes go up in the first year. That could be, if the average home size for a Habitat family is around 6, you're talking 60-some. Think of the input into the school district. Think of the people that, again, Omro, once we started running the numbers for them, what this could mean to the community. What it took was brave people that just overcame those that were just fearful. At the end of the day, you meet fear by just recognizing it and then slowly overcoming it. You can't reason in this. You have to be able to show them, here's who you're saying you're against. And like I said, we've had our families in the Christmas parade. We've had them volunteering in community groups. Once you get to know them on a first name basis, how can you be against them?
Supervisor Nelson.
Yeah, you mentioned that the homes were 1,000, 1,200 square feet, and you had mentioned after World War II, there was also a huge push for those homes in the early 70s. They referred to them as HUD homes. The one thing, they were all built according to the HUD specifications. I think half the houses in Winnebago that are newer than 100 years old are HUD homes, and they were built in such a way that they didn't come with a garage, but they were laid out so as you managed to get over the mortgage a little bit, you could expand and make them larger. I'm just happy to see that you're building units that are very functional that can be added to, and I own a couple of those HUD homes. They were some of the best built homes there were because they had so much oversight on them.
Yeah, if I could talk to you, I know that there are private builders who want to build in this zone. They can't do it. They can't make money. I will tell you, you're praising me how successful I am. We lose $80,000 per house. Donors fill the gap. We're doing this by design. The problem with trying to build smaller is the time that it's taking from when you buy the dirt to when you can finally start going. You're financing all that. What we're really trying to find and where we want to be successful in the next wave is, can we make it so you as a builder want to build that 10,000 to 1,200 square foot? Right now you're having to build big because you've got to get your money back. And all I can say to you and all of the government is keep working on streamlining the processes. I realize the age of ARPA is over. What I'm really asking is, can government make it easier so we can make that timeline shorter? And what I really want is to work with the other agencies so somebody that's in one of the units that Will brought up at the tiny house can get into the program. We've put our people over there. I will say I agree with his assessment. It was too big of a jump. They need a little bit more time in the tiny house. We are learning these things. And the other thing is, I thank you for saying about my passion, because the movement after World War II, they did not think it was going to happen. Remember, Levittown, the first subdivision, there were people against it, but nobody wanted to speak up against the GIs. That's why he went with getting the GIs to buy the homes. I really think we need that will now, because as I showed you, these families on the screen, they're some of the greatest families you want working for you. If we can get that and you can streamline it and you can help on the financing, I think other private builders will do what we're doing. They're watching us and seeing if we can survive it. Please help.
Supervisor Facetto.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for your presentation. Real quick question. You mentioned that the folks who the home is being built for do buy it.
Yes.
And I understand, you know, there are many volunteers, and I actually helped volunteer build one in Stevens Point. It was a great, great time. But is there, maybe requirement is too hard of a word, but is there some incentive for the homeowners to contribute some sweat equity?
Yes.
So that the actual payment for the home might be a little bit less?
There are several requirements. First is, we always believe that what you don't earn, you don't value. So one of the first things is you put in what we call sweat equity. And you've said, a homeowner must volunteer 200 and some hours on either building their homes, or in our case, community volunteering in AMRA. You know, that was what we try to kill two birds with one stone. Get your name out there that you're going to be a homeowner in this community, and we'll count every hour that you're volunteering towards your sweat equity. The other thing that we do is we sell the homes at 0% interest. That has been tough in this interest market. We do put in title clauses so that if you try to sell the home right away, we sell the home at what the homeowner can afford, not what it costs to build. This program, and there was a key reason that I put it at 60% covered by the grant. That was the part I couldn't cover through the private donors at that point. So what the grant did is we leveraged the grant to get as many homes as possible, but you help cover what I couldn't cover in the short term. And I think that it is, I will tell you, the cost of our per unit building is more than doubled. It is still, I think, the other thing that you could really do is encourage people to go into the vocational trades. The vocational trades, it is a seller's market right now. It is hard to find contractors. And if you could build a bigger home at a high unit cost, or you could build a smaller one, you're going to they're working with us out of love for the community. They could make more money building the big house. So, like I said, streamline the processes, help encourage people to go into vocation. I've never seen a worker shortage like this. People don't want to pour concrete. They don't want to be out in weather like this. They don't, we've got to encourage kids. This is a noble field. We need you.
Supervisor Bender.
Just curious, do you ever look at the homes that Winnebago County has up for sale that are for back taxes? I mean, I know we got one for sale right now and 3 more coming up in the next month, or don't you want to basically remodel existing homes?
My construction manager will talk to you all day. Remodeling, it depends on the unit and what's its condition. That is a wild card. We have bought tax foreclosures. Generally, we tear that down. We have just found for our model that for handicapped accessibility, for the life of the home, we generally buy the lowest of the low, the tear down. So we have done that. We've done that in 3 cases in Oshkosh.
Thank you much for the
All right,
presentation.
thank you.
Next is the Homelessness, Evict, and Loss Prevention Help Program. Beth Roberts from Long-Term Support Division Manager.
Good evening. Expressing my concern or my thanks for this program and your support of it can get me a little emotional, so I'm going to save the thank you for the end because it's such an important program. Just to remind you, I'm Beth Roberts from the Human Services Department, and the HELP program is a program that's designed to increase stability in housing in our county. I'm going to start with what's been working well. We've done some collaborative efforts that are really hard to completely explain why they're so different than they were before. We've had partners get together that hadn't worked together. For example, Levin, that serves the northern part of the county, only served the northern part of the county, and they now meet with us weekly to figure out how we together can support people. We've had good examples with our housing authority where they do have social workers to try and keep people in their house or their apartment long-term, but sometimes they are limited to what they can do, so they partner with us and we can figure out solutions on how to keep people that are involved with the housing authority together. We've partnered with landlords in our community that didn't know what a Section 8 voucher was and therefore just didn't accept people that were using a Section 8 voucher, that now understand it, are accepting people that have a Section 8 voucher through the housing authority and promoting it amongst some of their co-landlord people. So some real progress in the way of collaborative efforts in our community. The second bullet point that mentions all of the different agencies, it's particularly nice because if someone is experiencing housing instability and rather overwhelmed by what they're going through, they might have to go through 6 different doors to try and figure out where they can get assistance and exactly how to maneuver that. And this is a one-stop shop. If you go to any of the entities that are supporting people with housing, they will then bring that situation amongst all of them to figure out how they can jointly support it without any duplication or missing anybody. And people don't have to go through as many hoops, so we can get support to people a lot quicker than we used to. With a point about legal action and conflict resolution, legal action would be an example where we can help people get an eviction taken off their record. So we've already talked tonight about how an eviction can lead to not being accepted for housing, and if we can get that eviction taken off their record, opens up a lot of doors for people. So the collaborative efforts that we've made, I could go on all night about, that just didn't exist before, and have brought together some newfounded ways to support people in our community who have housing instability. Okay. Which one? There we go. So the data. I have talked to you guys before about some anecdotal situations, a little bit about numbers. One of the things you asked about the last time I was here was what people are served in our community and whether it's just for Oshkosh. So we predominantly do serve people that are from Oshkosh, in part because it's the biggest municipality. There's some socioeconomic differences, things like that, but it is predominantly Oshkosh. As you can see on the bottom of this slide, Neenah would be the second largest group of people served, then Menasha, then Amro, Winnebago, and then the rest of the people served are Pickett, the southern part of Appleton, and some of the more rural areas, which is a much smaller percentage of people who've come to us. I've also mentioned that the situations that come to us are very different in terms of it could be someone experiencing a foreclosure, a non-eviction, or non-renewal, an eviction, simply not having affordable housing anymore. So it's all over the place, but those are the municipalities and the kind of order in which the percentage of people that we serve are. This past year, we had 1,911 people that we had contact with. So that doesn't mean that we provided active case management for them, but they came to us with a need or a request or some type of information or assistance that was needed. It's a big number. The 241 walk-in number is important because we are there for people when they need us to just come to us. They don't have to worry about, I'm going to call, I'm going to leave a message. There are people who are already homeless that can just walk into our building. And it's kind of cool because some of them, even though they now have housing, come back regularly to check in with us. But it's nice that we can just have someone walk in. They don't have to schedule an appointment. And again, for someone experiencing housing instability, it can be a really big deal to have to schedule appointments and figure out when I'm going to meet with people. We are very accessible. We will go to people in the community and meet with them wherever they need to, which is very different than some of our other housing programs. A lot of them, you have to go to the facility or to the place to meet with people or fill out certain applications. We have no barriers. We're very barrier-free. The case management part on the second bullet is really important because what research has shown is that case management is really the key to getting people stable housing, that it's not just a referral somewhere, it's not just giving them information. That is helpful for certain people in our community, but for people who really have a history of unstable housing, the case management is very, very critical to help them figure things out. An example would be a family that was living at the Town Motel here in Oshkosh, an entire family for a period of time. We helped them get stable housing, and that was awesome. They were very excited. And about 2 months into it, following up with them and having contact, because they had lived at the Town Motel for so long, they hadn't any experience paying bills. So now they have these bills coming in and trying to figure out, whoa, I got rent and bills and this, and they were very overwhelmed. So we helped them go through budgeting and how to figure that out and how to get on energy assistance. And so without that post-case management support, things I think would have fallen apart very quickly for them, and that was their history in the past. The number about the financial assistance, that is still the highest request we have is for people who need financial assistance. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Some of it is for people who are already unsheltered and don't have a place. Wasn't the intention of the program, but we're certainly not going to deny people who already are unhoused. And the other percentage has a lot to do with alternative housing. We've experienced many people who are older adults and they're on a fixed income and their rent is going up minimum of $100 a month. Countless people, I can tell you that my mother included, it's going up $100 a month. So if you're on a fixed income and you don't have $100 a month to pay, now what? So we've helped people either maneuver that or to find a different place to live that's more affordable. Okay. Oh, wrong way. Yeah, that's what I was trying there. And there I am. So now I'm going to talk just a little bit about what I'm referring to when it comes to this kind of advocacy, case management, things like that. We had one older gentleman who we just had to talk to the landlord and they didn't raise it. We've had people that we've had to, again, refer to energy assistance, maybe some food resources like food pantries and different resources to help allocate their money differently. We recently had a woman who had a water leak, and so her water bill went up astronomically. She could not afford a plumber, so it continued to leak. Her bill got worse, and long story short, she got so far behind that it affected her ability to pay taxes, and she'd been in that home her entire life. She's an older single woman and was at risk of losing it after all that. So she just needed that one little boost to get caught up. We've had people who have had an injury or an illness and they lost a month of wages. Now what? And so that's just that little boost that we've been able to help people with. What's important about that is we don't just give money away. The person has to have a sustainable plan. So if someone maybe was unemployed for a period of time due to whatever illness or injury, when they come to us, they have to have another job already. It can't be, I don't know thanks for this month, but I don't know what I'm going to do next month. We can't support people like that because we don't know where it's going. So it has to be a circumstance that they are able to show a sustainable plan to continue with their housing. One of the other things that's really important, and I'm going to get it right this time. Oh, still didn't work. Okay, I got this. Okay. I'm going to say no thanks to Ethan for making me do this, but so something that's really important when I talk about the need for financial assistance. When the grant was initially awarded, we had a certain allocation that was intended for, say, a security deposit or first month's rent, because sometimes you can find the housing, but as you heard from the people with solutions and tiny houses and other situations, once you found the housing, now you have to have first month's rent, security deposit, sometimes last month's rent. That's a chunk of money that you have to be able to put down. So you might have a sustainable plan that you have an income and you can pay your monthly rent and all of your expenses, but how do you get that initial funding? So we had some funds that we went through that first year, which was 2023, to help people with that little boost. And we ran out of that at some point last year, and we're able to then continue to support that. Well, as people learn more about the HELP program and the value that it has and the impact it has on our community, we have been just overwhelmed by the entities that have come to us giving us money to assist people with those kind of expenses. And it's entities like J.J. Keller, and there's a church in Neenah that's being sold, and they have a endowment fund that they've given us some money, and I've listed some of the other places, but they were entities that wanted to help. They realize our housing situation, they realize our homeless situation, and they didn't know how to help. They don't know, they can't just give money to people. So by the ability to give it to this program through the United Way and the Collaborative and the things I've mentioned, we can get the money to the people appropriately, and these entities are just loving it. I mean, I'm talking about over $100,000 that have been donated to us. It's been absolutely amazing. We have helped, like I said, it's about 70 people in the last 6 months just through these donations. So it's been really, and we have more people coming to us saying, how can we contribute? How can we help? Recognizing that we have the case management, and that's really important, but what about those expenses that are just diminished so much in our community? A lot of the things that were available during COVID are gone, and some of the entities that had funding just are exhausted. So this is a way to really work with people and get the money to the people to get them established in stable housing. As I said, the money that we've used through the grant is predominantly for the staff, the case managers, and the people that support individuals. And there's an overflow of about close to $250,000 that is carried forward into this year that's helping to support the program. We are very excited because the state has gotten what's called a waiver, and it's a way for us to bill for case management. And in the past, this was not a billable service. So we recognize the need to do this kind of pilot project with the grant and the impact it has. Well, now the state's recognized what an impact this kind of stuff has, and is allowing a program that will allow us to bill for some of that time. It's not going to completely cover the program, but it will be available February 1st, and we're very anxious to be able to use it, not only for this program, but for some of the other people within human services that support housing instability. We'll also be able to use that as a source of revenue going forward, and that will be a permanent source of revenue. There's an important grant that's coming up this spring that we're very excited about that could be a big game changer in how much financial support we get for staff, and that's a 5-year renewable grant, so we're pretty excited about that. We don't have it, but we will. The people that are granting the funds have told us how excited they are to support us, so for whatever that means, but we're excited about that. I think I've covered most everything I was going to cover as far as where we're at now with the number of people we served, some of the collaborations that are just, again, something that I've been in human services for, I'm going to age myself, 35 years now, and I have not seen this kind of people come together for such a cause and do it so successfully. It's really amazing. When we were looking at a grant last year, we had 11 letters of support from our community partners that just practically brought tears to my eyes reading these letters of support. We have so many people that want to help us through this. So it's been this little project that I was super excited about, and I am very grateful for the support that's really blossomed into something having a very big impact on our communities. So I sincerely thank you for accepting the grant through the Neighborhood Project and your support of this program.
Any questions? You got any? Supervisor Pacetto?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Beth, thank you very much for your presentation. It's greatly appreciated. You talked a lot about some of the external stakeholders that you've been engaging in order to help solve some of the problems that are out there, which I think is really great because you've been able to extend your enterprise essentially at no cost to the county. But I'm assuming you don't do things halfway, and so I'm wondering what kind of strategies you're employing internally among staff and others in that four-story building that you're in. How is that working internally to bring about efficiencies as you're delivering the help program?
So one of the ways is that we are partnering with, so if we get a referral from child welfare or behavioral health, we're working with the individual that they're already hooked up with. Sometimes they don't even know about the help program, so it might be a family who is at risk of not being able to have their kids with them because they don't have a place to live, and they're already working with people in, say, child welfare. And so it might be that we're just coaching the child welfare staff on try this, go this, check into this, so that they can maintain their relationship and help the family. And we're kind of teaching or training, in a sense, people on what kind of resources do we utilize, what do we use legal advocacy for, how have we worked with landlords, what kind of funding resources are available. So sort of teaching people how to fish instead of catching fish for them all the time is one way to increase efficiency. There are times that it's a really, really, really involved, complex situation, and we don't need a behavioral health specialist who does an extraordinary job with behavioral health to have to somehow delve into the housing world to keep this person's behavioral health issues stable. So it might be a matter of we take it over. We provide joint case management for a period of time, so they have their behavioral health specialist and they have a help specialist to get their housing stable. But we work together and figure out, we're not overlapping what we're doing. It's a very specific role that each one has. So it's either that we're supporting the person or we are distinguishing what role do people have to assist. And the more the word gets out, we have actually other counties even who are asking us what we're doing and how we're doing it. We have other partners. The problem with community partners is that a lot of the other programs are limited because you already have to have been evicted. And again, as has been brought up tonight, once you have an eviction, good luck. Landlords don't even look at your application. So we don't want people to have to go through an eviction and then have that mark on them. We want to get to people beforehand. And a lot of the programs, pretty much all the programs, you already have to have received an eviction to get to them. So that's another way that we're trying to be more efficient.
So it sounds a little bit like you're the liaison between silos and essentially breaking through the silos so that you have that cross-reference, cross-training,
Yeah.
cross efforts, basically.
Yeah, a big breakthrough. It's we started out, we're on the third floor of the Human Services building here in Oshkosh, and we started out, we're co-located with the Aging and Disability Resource Center and the veterans. And the number of joint people that would benefit as a homeless veteran, for example, or a person who is not able to stay in their own home because it's no longer accessible to them, so they go right across the hall to the Aging and Disability Resource Center to get what they need so that they can, so the partnership there was just a really good way to lift off the program at the beginning. We're still doing all of that, but that's how it started, as being co-located with some people that we knew were high need.
Thank you.
Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for being here and your presentation. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the hours of operation or when services are available to people.
We're typically operating during the regular human services hours, which are 8 to 4:30. We have someone who's on call during that entire time. We don't have a lunch period that we're not available or something like that. But then it's as needed beyond that. So we were meeting with some people who were already unsheltered prior to 8 o'clock for a period of time. We sometimes when it's a family who's working until 5 o'clock or later, and they need to meet with us, we'll meet after that. So we will meet outside of those hours upon request, but we're not in the building outside of those hours for walk-ins. So if it's someone who just needs to come to us, they would need to come. But we've had people come in at 4:25, and we will serve them, and as long as they need to work with us. So, but the hours that are for sure having someone on call would be those hours at this point.
Thanks. And then I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit more about some of the barriers in our community that you all are seeing, and maybe specifically the ones that are changing. So you mentioned like rent increases being maybe something more recent. That's a bigger part of what you're working on. Are there more barriers out there, and then sort of buried in that question, because kind of everything we've heard tonight talks about the complexity of housing issues. Does your program have the flexibility that it needs to sort of deal with the panoply of situations that might keep somebody from getting that eviction or sliding further away from an ideal housing situation?
Yes, so one of the barriers, in addition to, again, the evictions, drug and alcohol use, those kind of things that we've talked about, would be a surprising number of people who aren't able to follow through with getting an application to a landlord, filled out correctly, every I dotted, every T crossed, get it to them, pay, sometimes it's up to $50 application fee, and then follow through with them, because we've talked to landlords who have one opening and they get 50 applications. So if theirs came in at the bottom of the pile, they'll never get to them. You need to call that landlord the day after you turn it in. We've had situations where we've called the landlord as we're turning it in to say, hello, I have an application, can I talk to you about this? So there's a very large number of people who aren't able to follow through those steps for a variety of reasons. It could be literacy, it could be mental health, it could be any one of many reasons. And so our past practice before this program would be, here's a list of the local housing opportunities. Go ahead, here you go. You want me to mail it to you, fax it, and that was largely what we had the capability of doing. And now with case management, we can walk through that with them. So we're not going to do things for people that they can do for themselves, but for the people that for whatever reason, they don't have a stamp to get the application in or a means to get it in. I mean, they're very paralyzed by their situation. So that has been one of the barriers, is just the ability to get an application through the process. And the flexibility of this program is what works. Again, we don't have to wait until a person's in a really drastic situation. As soon as they find out that their rent is going up, or we've had people who don't have proper identification and they were born in another state that we've helped get their identification. I just helped a couple, guy and his mother yesterday with getting her birth certificate from California so she can get an ID so she can get to the next step. So it's these barriers that neither one of them had a computer. It took me a half hour to figure out how to get a birth certificate from California, but it's those kind of odd barriers that you just wouldn't expect that are impeding a person from getting housing or keeping stable housing. It's really been interesting in that way. So yeah, there's the trends of our older population, there's the eviction stuff and the barriers that are well aware in our community, but it's also just those little, I shouldn't call them little hurdles because they're a big hurdle if you're experiencing it, but those hurdles that people are experiencing that they just can't get from point A to point B, and this program has been able to help them.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And it's very customer driven. They decide what level of support and how long, and what, we don't decide any of that.
Supervisor Laux.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Beth, for your presentation. You brought up the woman with the leak that she couldn't get fixed, and then it pretty much led to disaster. Was there any way she could have contacted you at the leak?
She didn't know about us. It
But
was
if she had,
Oh, yes, yes. If she had contacted us at that point, so we might have been able to hook her up with a plumber who could do it at little to no cost. We might have been able to help her work with the city on the fact that it wasn't a leak in her house. It was actually related to her house, but, you know, so she, by the time she started working with the city, she was already in debt. But yes, we could have done a lot of things that aren't necessarily financially based. It's just that advocacy and helping connect people to the right things. And that was kind of our final phase of rollout about mid last year was, now that we're doing this and we're doing it successfully, how do we get to people to let them know, come to us as soon as you think there's a problem or you realize there's a problem. So that's kind of our latest phase that we're trying to now get out to the community.
thank you very much.
Mhm.
Thank you very much. Now we'll go into the presentations from the departments. We've got a presentation to transfer of the Tri-County Ice Arena to Appleton Ice Incorporated. I believe Mike and Ethan are going to be the presenters.
Okay. So what we wanted to do is, a resolution's already gone through facilities that we'll talk about, but we wanted to update to make sure there wasn't any sentiment based on what we're asking or what Appleton Ice is asking with the Tri-County Arena prior to that. So if there was any feedback based on where we're headed, we knew that before final passage so that we could be efficient in the request. So Mike and I have been working on this for a couple of years, largely waiting for Appleton Ice to kind of give us an offer of what they need. And at the end of the day, they have a plan to rehab the building, but they need ownership of it in order to secure the rest of their financing. So for those of you who aren't apprised of the Tri-County Ice Arena, in 1974, an ice arena was built in Fox Crossing on American Drive. If you know where the tennis facility in YMCA is in Fox Crossing, it's across the street. 4 years later, Winnebago County and Outagamie County purchased it. And then in 2012, it became wholly owned by Winnebago County for $1. And at that time, the board passed a resolution to direct the county executive to find a long-term solution and get rid of it. Then came in 2014, Appleton Ice signed a 15-year lease. And I'll put lease in quotes because effectively we said, you are going to act as the owner. You need to maintain everything in the building, everything about the building, on your dime, and if you can do that for 15 years, we'll give it to you for $1. And so it was a terrible deal for Appleton Ice, but they wanted to keep ice and hockey in the Fox Valley because this is, 4 or 5 years before the Champion Center in Appleton. And so Appleton Ice was a new operator of the facility at the time. We had a different operator, different situation. They agreed to handle all major capital needs of the ice equipment, the dasher boards, but also the building itself. The county has invested very little over the last decade into the ice arena, probably even before that, into it. We've done nothing other than do some snow plowing, some grading on the parking lot, and that was by design by the 2014 county board. They told the agreement was we were not to invest in that facility. We agreed to transfer the property at the end of the lease for $1, which is the middle of 2029. And then for all intents and purposes, like I say, Appleton Ice agreed to own the building without any stake in the building for 15 years. That was the agreement. So what they've requested from us is they are seeking a capital campaign to rehabilitate the facility. They indicate they are not pursuing to build a new facility on site or another site. There was, I think, some discussion maybe they were going to build a new site in the parking lot and then tear down the site. That is not the case. They plan to rehabilitate the ice floor and the building and make it, I don't know, state of the art is, but better. What they are doing is they are seeking the property early to secure funding. So they want, their request, we got it this morning in writing, was they just want us to give it to them as soon as possible so they can get naming rights primarily for the building and the ice. They're seeking donations, grants, and they need ownership of the building for loans. They are requesting, seeking some in-kind snow plowing and other services from the county until 2030. That just helps them with their operational stability. They've also asked for some technical advice on grants and kind of other government funding, things that we offer now. And then because we have maintenance folks, they've asked for maybe some technical expertise from maintenance to say, hey, this is not working. Do you guys have any advice? But beyond that, they're just asking for the building at this point. The county's current offer to them, which was the resolution that went through facilities pending the agreement with Appleton Ice to agree to those terms, was they secure funding or they complete their capital campaign, the county will give them the property. Meaning you have a guarantee that you have the money to rehab the building, and so we have a generational, next generation funded facility. We know you're going to be here between now and 2029 when the original agreement was. That is enough for us to give you the building. But you have to be well on your way in the capital campaign or securing the funding. We currently have given them 2 years to raise those funds. We agree to their request for snow plowing in kind through they've now asked 2030, but we agreed to that. And then this was the offer that went through committee pending agreement with Appleton Ice. So that the resolution that we currently have drafted states that they tell us what their capital goals are to rehab the building over the next 4 years. They hit those goals, secure the money, get the naming rights. They prove that to us, we give them the building. That is the string that we are requesting. Some frequently asked questions. What are the county's options? Option one, you could say, we're not giving you the building early. You have to maintain your current lease. You get it in 2029. That's the current on the table. We could immediately transfer you could just say, transfer the property and give it to them, no strings. Or you could transfer the property with proof of funding to rehabilitate their capital campaign. Do we need an appraisal? No. The county has already agreed to give them the property to Appleton Ice. At this point, an appraisal would encumber unnecessary costs. We've already said, Appleton Ice, you can have it for $1 if you operate it. We don't need an appraisal. What if another organization wants the arena? First of all, I can tell you the YMCA has said they are not interested, even though they're across the street. But the county board already has a binding agreement with Appleton Ice to give them the arena. Giving the arena to the organization early allows for ensured long-term viability for the next generation of indoor users. So the board has already made the decision. Appleton Ice is the person we're giving the building to. And if the only thing that would change that is if they decide to back away from the lease or not buy it, or you don't accept this offer. How do we ensure they will continue the facility? This is the string the board needs to weigh. This is your decision. Staff believes that with proof of funding to rehab the property, we believe that will serve to ensure hockey will be on the site till the original conclusion of the lease. Because what will happen in 2029, they could say, okay, we'll just run it till 29 and give it to them. They could sell it then. So we really only need ICE till 2029 to do the original agreement. We know that if they rehab the building with $2 million, in all reality, ICE is going to continue for a generation. And then if they sell after 2030, they already can do that. I just answered that. So what's next? The facility's recommendation is for a resolution to transfer contingent on Appleton Ice securing rehabilitation money. This will advance to the county board based on the motion pending agreement with Appleton Ice. Appleton Ice and county staff will meet on whether the agreement is agreeable to them. We don't have an agreement from them yet from the holiday, and we have not met there. And if the board today through sentiment, you want the committee to discuss other things, we will take that back to the committee. And so we expect in February or March, the board to take up a resolution on authorizing us to execute an agreement to transfer the facility. So, Mike, I don't know, that's what you told me to say, so I don't know if you have anything else.
No, that's about it in a nutshell. We've been working with them, I think, 2 or 3 years, and they have been very earnest in their dealings with us in that they want to keep ICE there. They need to have some way they can collateralize
Yeah.
collateralize their loan. And then they're looking at selling naming rates for like 20 years. So you're not going to sell something to Pepsi or somebody else for 20 years and then bail out in 3. So I have a good feeling. I think Ethan has a good feeling. I think we have got some earnest people here that would really like to take this off our hands. And that is something that the county had wanted to do back in 2010. So I think this would be a good deal, and I would encourage you to, support us on this action.
Supervisor Burrow.
Mr. Chairman, Ethan and Mike, great presentation. First of all, admission, I'm a dad of 2 hockey goalies who played there, but my question is specific. You don't address the parking lot. You talk about the facility, et cetera. The parking lot should be part of the plan. Hopefully it is.
Yeah, 2 parcels, there's actually two parcels there. We would propose giving them both parcels.
Okay.
So the whole thing.
But they would be responsible for upgrading the parking lot too.
Yeah, we would only offer the in-kind snow plowing and technical advice.
Okay, I'm not sure how we plow it, because today it's kind of,
Yeah,
you're gonna bring
Yeah.
up parts of parking lot, so.
yeah. So
all
we
right.
do currently plow it. They want that deal to continue to
Great.
2030.
Again, great deal. I think you guys have worked out a nice proposal. Thank you.
Supervisor Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, have you gone out and actually looked at the building, taken a look, walked through, found the women's locker rooms, taken a look at all of the ADA needs that need to be looked at, and taken a look at the roof, taking a look at around the base to see how the foundation looks, that kind of thing. Have you been around that building enough to know the maintenance on it?
I've been around it a little bit, but the agreement that we had with them was that the responsibility for maintenance was not mine anymore after 2010. So our involvement as a county has been actually very minimal in doing anything with the building. So Appleton Ice is very familiar with the building. They're wanting to take it, and they are going to be assuming all responsibilities for upgrading and making it work for what they have.
I had a conversation with Mr. Grader, who was the manager of that building for Appleton Ice.
Mhm.
George Dearborn was with me, and John Damo was with me. And Mr. Grader gave me some insight as to what was wrong with, the boiler and the parking lot. The parking lot, what they did is, asphalt part of the parking lot, but they had planned to do the whole thing, but now they've also thought about putting another ice arena on the far end of and not doing all of the parking lot in the event that they were to take over the ice arena fully. They would probably tear it down and put a new ice arena on the end of the parking lot, that kind of thing. There was boilers at $80,000 that needed to be fixed. There was foundation work at about $40,000 that needed to be worked on. There are repairs on the roof. The cost is unknown. Carpet and the paint and that stuff needed to be worked on. There was a cooling tower system at $50,000 plus that had to be worked on. I can read you the whole bunch. I can give you this.
Oh, yes, I know all about those problems.
But
And
it
we knew
seems-
about those
it
problems
seems-
in
it seems to
2010.
me- Wait a minute. It seems to me that they were in charge of keeping the maintenance up to date when they took the lease out with Mr. Harris at that time. And now, suddenly, they want to take it over entirely. I don't believe that there was ever an inspection on the building before they took the lease out, so I don't know whether or not they have fully absolved in the condition of the building has deteriorated since 2022. So I'm concerned, my main concern is that they're more interested in buying or getting the building and getting a building as cheaply as possible and then turning that around and taking money and putting it in with Appleton Ice rather than handling the building as was described in the lease as a maintenance project and keeping the ice current where it is.
The discussions I've had with Kevin and the conditions that you have described were well known in 2010 with Appleton Ice when they took over the building. I know that the ice floor has been bad. It's been heaving since before 2010. Now, they took on that building in the lease with those responsibilities with the idea that they will be getting that building in 2029. Now, we could hang on to this building and they will still get the building in 2029 based on the agreement that we've got with them right now. What they would like to do is improve the facility so that there is more ice in the valley for the high schools, the colleges, the leagues to be able to do it. Right now there are, I think they said five sheets of ice for hockey. And they could actually have more ice if it wasn't such an expensive proposition. Their idea is not to take this building and just run with the money. They've been very earnest in that they want to rehab this building.
Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a good deal. I've been discussing this for a long time. I guess just my concern would be about the technical support that you mentioned. Are you going to put a dollar amount in there, like not to exceed X amount of dollars? Or how is that going to be worded, or do you know yet?
The three of us read it real brief. We got it at like 10 o'clock this morning. So, but I think it's largely the same language we have in the current agreement, and there's an end date of 2030. The other thing they're asking for is there's Inflation Reduction Act, and there's some other things that are percolating, congressionally directed spending, those types of things that the county kind of has some experience in, and so we wouldn't go crazy because we don't have a complete expert in it, but we would. Mike and facilities are out there like once or twice a year. We don't anticipate being more than that. So we wouldn't put a dollar amount in because they're not really asking for the maintenance side of it. They're really asking for the snow plowing, which is the same deal that they have. So the language I think is largely similar. And based on what they've requested and what we skimmed today, they're not asking for the world. It's not like they're asking, hey, Mike, come design my new HVAC system, or they're going to pay for that. This is, kind of to get them to that point until their rehab's done. So it's real. We consider a real small request, and I don't know, Mike.
It'd be de minimis if we've been out there 3 times in 10 years. That is a lot.
Sure. Yeah. I just how that was written in the contract is important. So just making sure that our I's are dotted and T's are crossed. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're overselling. They're asking for much little, and it makes it sound like here. It was very minimal what they're actually asking for.
Supervisor Bender.
I guess a year and a half ago, there were citizens at the facilities meeting complaining about the way the building was being maintained, and the facility committee agreed to tour that facility, and you set an appointment up and it snowed, and you canceled it, and you never went back to fulfill what you said you were going to do. And I think you need to go there, contract in hand, and make sure they're living up to the contract that you signed. The building, that it is maintained properly, and if it's not maintained properly, they need to bring it up to the standard, or we could take the building back. I think we need to see a balance sheet from Appleton Ice to see if they really have any money at all. They could be one day away from bankruptcy. We don't know. We're going to give them a building. We have never seen a balance sheet from Appleton Ice. We have never seen a business plan. And I can guarantee you, you will not get a loan from any bank without a business plan. Nobody's going to go and borrow you $500,000 to remodel an ice rink if you can't tell them how you can pay it back. I don't think we're doing a due diligence to the taxpayers if we're just gonna give them a building because they say they would like it. You know, we've basically built the 980 housing. We were told we were gonna get 6, we got 3. There was the highway department here
Please
with a.
stay on the
showing
ice
picture.
arena, Mr. Bender. Please
What?
stay on the ice arena, please.
Well, I'm just saying, I can't always believe what I'm told, because what usually happens is we're told it's gonna go this way, and it doesn't really go that way. They could basically be telling us they're gonna remodel that building, and as soon as we turn that building over to them, they could sell it. We have no recourse. There's no way to get anything back. I don't wanna see Fox Crossings lose that ice arena. I was up there Saturday. I looked at the building, and I know that what it needs, but we need to basically do our due diligence and make sure we're doing the taxpayers fair.
Supervisor Hanson.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think most of my questions have been answered based on what Supervisor Buck said. I thought I heard you say that this was already in resolution form. Has that been to the Facilities Committee?
Yes.
What was, I wish that would have been an exhibit for today. What was the vote?
It
5-0?
it was 5-0, requiring them to have a capital campaign plan in the contract with clear benchmarks that we knew they were going to have the money to rehabilitate it. So the reason we did it that way was exactly what Supervisor Bender was talking about. We know there's deferred maintenance from the last decade and beyond. And so we want them to identify that, have a clear capital campaign plan, what they need money for, and then when they achieve the money to do that project, whether it's a loan, whether it's naming rights, whether it's grants, whether it's donations, that is what's in the exhibit. They prove they have the money to do that. That's effectively their payment to the building, that they have the cash financing to do what they'd have. They need the building for the collateral and to sign the contracts for naming rights. So those are some of the due diligence things that we will put in the contract that we have to see. So if they sell the naming rights, Mike used Pepsi, we will say, prove that you sold the naming rights to Pepsi. If they say we raised $2 million, we will say, prove you've raised your $2 million. That's why we designed it the way we designed it. We've followed other counties who've done similar turnbacks of county-owned facilities, that we really felt that we know there's deferred maintenance. Arguing over that doesn't help them, doesn't help. Making sure that they have the resources to fix those problems was a bigger priority. That's why we have the proposal that we took to the committee. And that's why we're not here saying we believe you should just give them the building tomorrow. We believe they should complete their capital campaign or secure the funding.
Supervisor Nelson. Supervisor Nelson.
I don't think my mic's on. There we go. The little bit I know about the Tri-County Ice Arena, it's been a football that's been kicked all around the place since it was built, I believe. How did we become the sole owners of it? Did we have to pay Outagamie County, and what kind of price did we pay to become the sole owners?
We paid County Executive Nelson $1.
There you go. There, okay. And there you go. There should be some interest on there, I think. But so it seems to me with all the facilities that we talk on a regular basis of maintaining all the different buildings that we have. And that arena, my understanding, was built so that there would be an ice arena in this area, and this group is willing to take over what could be a huge headache for us and continue to have an ice arena there. I guess a no-brainer is what comes to my mind, and I appreciate the due diligence you've put in to make sure they have the funding to continue it forward. So, thank you.
Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This ice arena issue and concern goes way back, of course. Based on what I've heard tonight, I think providing an opportunity for those that manage it and want to improve it by getting better financing or securing financing sooner through the plan you presented is ideal. Couldn't get a better deal. So and I certainly thank Ethan and Mike for putting this together. I think it's very advantageous. Thank you.
I guess if I could just say one thing to clarify. Appleton Ice has maintained the building in the same state that we turned it over to them in 2010. So it's not like they got a pristine building in 2010. It has not deteriorated much of anything over the 10 years.
Supervisor Hintz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to address the board and say, as the chairman of facilities and property management, we had the people from Appleton Ice at our meeting. We asked all these questions. We grilled up and we made sure they were okay with the agreement. We made sure they were okay with the stipulation of them securing funding before we would sign anything over. So everybody was in the room talking all at once, and by getting a naming agreement, again, as was stated before, that doesn't say that I'm going to abandon the property. You sign a 20-year lease for naming rights and you sell it out in a year, they're going to want 24 years worth of money back. And that's just how it is. There's no stealing the money like that. So that's the built-in, that's our built-in caveat there that's going to say they can't do what seems like it would be obvious to do, which is to, get the cheap property and then turn it over. We're not allowing them to do that because we're making them secure their money to do all of these maintenance upgrades to get this place where they want it and to proceed into the future. This was very well discussed at our meeting with input from every single one of our people on that committee. And believe me, we made sure with Appleton Ice and with the county that we had everything in place to make this stay there and not be something that would go. I mean, we had people talking about Quick Trip and people talking about, and if you know the location, those places aren't going in there. And we have, what is it, the YMCA, I think it was, that's right there? And they have no interest in this property. So it's not like, it's not like we're sitting on we're turning over a mini gold mine for $1. So I just want everybody to understand, if you want to know more about this, go back and look at our minutes or watch the video from last month when we discussed this, because there were a lot of this and more was discussed at that meeting. Thank you.
Supervisor Bender.
I did actually listen to your meeting, and if they would have came there with a plan of how they're going to redo Appleton Ice, I would agree to that if I could see the plan up front. I didn't see a plan. I don't know if they're going to put a roof on and basically change some lighting, and that's going to be what they're going to do, and we're going to give them the building. We did not see a detailed plan of what they're going to do. What we're agreeing to is if they raise some money, we're going to give them the building. If it's going to come back to this committee with a detailed drawing of what they want to do with Appleton Ice, and you'll need that to get financing. There's nobody going to borrow you $1 million or $750,000 on saying we're going to remodel it. But that's what you're telling us. You're telling us they're going to remodel it, but you're not telling us what they're going to do, how much money they're going to spend. You just want us to basically agree, and what we may get is the sign fixed in the front of the building and a new boiler. I have a hard time believing what I hear because I've been let down so many times in the past.
Supervisor Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, can you design a list of things that they're going to check and make sure that the dollars are there for each and every one of the things that they are going to be rebuilding, if it's a boiler, or if it's a sign out front, or if it's a lighting, or if it's the girls' locker room? At least have a list of all of this that we're actually expecting them to maintain and put together, and the dollar amount that they're going to set aside for it, and have that set up with our agreement, our new agreement, so that we can sign it off.
I will pass your request on to Appleton Ice for them to give us a list of what they're going to spend their money on. But I want you all to understand again, in 2010, the county board agreed to give them the building in 2029 for $1. They're asking to get the building early so that they can do improvements early. We could do nothing right now, and they can get the building in 2029, and everything that you're saying right now could still come to fruition. So what we're asking you to consider is giving the building to them early so that they can secure funding to improve the building early. I will pass on to Appleton Ice that we would like to have a more detailed description of what they will be using their money for, but my understanding is it's going to be a relatively large renovation of the building.
And what we told the committee was that would be the exhibit of the agreement that they need to complete. They have a capital complaint. Much of it is on their website for their other building. They're still developing it for theirs. But the way the resolution was written was provided that the organization completes its capital campaign or secures funding to rehabilitate the building. What would be required in the agreement is exactly what you're talking about as an exhibit, so we can check to make sure that that capital campaign is completed. So that's exactly what we're asking for. We are not coming here saying give them the building. They want that. That was their offer. We're saying we don't believe the board would pass that. We, in our negotiations, said we believe, the committee said this, we want guarantees that you're going to have ice there and not cut and run because you're getting a building. That is exactly why this proposal is what we've proposed based on the exhibits that we will require in the agreement and based on the resolution.
Supervisor Cox, you still have the floor.
Ethan, if you can provide us with that list and that statement that you just made, along with what we're going to have to sign it off for, we want to be able to not be fooled this time with change orders and whatever else. We want to see exactly what they're going to do and how they're going to spend, along with whatever we're giving away.
Yeah, and that was the purpose for this discussion. So we can go to Appleton Ice saying, we had a discussion with our board. This is what they want, so that they're comfortable to vote for it. That's exactly why we're here tonight before final passage. So this is exactly what we needed for the negotiations of the agreement. And the committee was very well aware that that was their purpose with Kevin in the room, to have that. So this is exactly what we expected.
And you will follow up on that to make sure that it's all written up properly, so we have, proof and evidence that this is the way it's going to be.
Yeah, that's what we would require when we come for final passage. Yeah.
Supervisor Swan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a member of the Facilities and Property Management Committee, and I inspected this property recently inside and out. And based on my background and knowledge and inspection of commercial property and commercial property appraisal, I can say that this building has been maintained to a standard of what it would be expected of a property of this age. Thank you.
Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think this is a great place for this to be. 11 years ago, I voted for the lease agreement. And I know one of the concerns that I had, I'm a hockey fan too, so one of the concerns that I had, was preserving the ice. I think in the last 10 years or so, the need for ice in the valley has increased. I know we just went down to some outdoor games in Chicago at Wrigley Field. It was just slightly colder than it is in this room. And where we are with this, I think ensures that there's a preservation of this ice, and I think it shows a really good partnership from our county government, because I don't know if we had turned the building over to Appleton Ice in 2010 or 2014, if they would be in a position to invest $2 million to rehab it. I think we'd probably be at the same point without the guarantee that the building remains available and open. So I just want to, maybe give the way that I've seen this play out. I think this is really fantastic, and it is a plan that really does set up an insurance that ice is available. I think, and as far as my 2 cents as well, I don't really care about the nitty, the details or like that, that sort of thing. That will be hashed out by you all. But like, if they're raising $2 million, if they're demonstrating that they've got that available or pledged or whatever, that feels sufficient. That there isn't some other nefarious plan to pull one over on the county. And frankly, if they did, it's not like we're going to sit here and invest $2 million into the building, right? Thanks.
Supervisor Hens.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. One point that I think we all forgot to mention is one of their major expenditures is going to be the new ice making for the surface. That tells you right there. That was one of their biggest one of their main focuses for expenditure was updating the floor, because it's still the old school ice floor that's hard to maintain. They can't get anything for it, and it's expensive to run. And they want to upgrade that to the new ice surface, or ice making surface, so it's more efficient. And that alone, right there, tells you that they want to stay in there having ice. So, thank you.
Well, now I'll get my 2 cents worth in. This has gone back so far that our previous county executive, and we were, I think it was pretty much unanimous to go ahead into with this agreement. So, okay, so that's beyond. We already know they can get it for $1 when the time comes. So now we're in the future. Do we go ahead and let them go out, collect this money in hopes that the county can work with them, let them get ahead, get it started, get a nice ice foundation and everything else on there? I was in the facilities 2 years ago and it got started. They told me to go to the county executive. If he went along with it, they all went along with it. I went to county executive. He said, definitely. He said, if we can get rid of it. I went to corporation counsel. She's gone now, I think, or she's someplace anyways. That sat on the desk for, I think, about 2 years. And now all of a sudden it comes out of the clear blue. So honestly, I think it's time that we really look at that. We've got kids, I shouldn't say we, because mine are just little ones now, or my grandchildren, but we got kids that want to be on that ice rink. And if something happens to it, somebody brought it up out here, are we going to take it back and spend $2 million for that ice arena? No way. If we talk about our bad buildings now, are we going to take something that the county isn't really even going to care of, or are we going to let a group go ahead that is interested, is promoting? I believe some of you were at it last week and you said there was 5 different teams or whatever were there, really promoting it strong. I think that we got to think as a board, think not only as the money wise, but as our kids growing up, do we want to still promote ice in the Fox Valley and in this area? So this is just a presentation tonight, but when it comes back, hopefully you'll all really think about that and preserve that in the back of your mind. So I have no one else. Do you, Julie? Nope. That is the end, so that's done with that presentation. Next is timeline for completion of the facilities master plan. Mike, you'll get to it.
Okay, this is going to be an update of our space needs assessment and facility master plan project that we've got ongoing right now. We started this project in summer. So the first thing is, what is a facilities master plan? We haven't had one in the 26 years that I've been here, and it's been kind of a frustration of mine because we don't have a forward-looking plan of it. It's been more of a reactionary type actions with our facilities. So a facilities master plan is a long-term strategic document that outlines our future development and how we're going to use our buildings and what our needs are going to be. It's going to help us with our maintenance or the improvement of a facility or a group of facilities. Earlier this evening, someone had asked me, how many buildings do we have? Grand total of all the property and buildings that we have in the county, it's like about 143 buildings that we've got. A lot of them are small, minor buildings that aren't really consequential, if you want to call it, like the courthouse or Oshkosh Human Services. But the plan would give us a comprehensive vision considering both current and projected needs. We haven't really looked at what our projected needs are going to be unless in an overarching, broad, countywide view. It's always been dealt with, we need a new nursing home, we need a new jail, we need a new administration building, we need a building, and it's always one step at a time. We haven't really taken a look at how this impacts everything that we have for our buildings. Strategic planning ensures that the right infrastructure for our goals. We need to take a look at how we provide services to our constituents, how we work among the different departments. There's a lot of things that we could do with sharing of staff and equipment if we were more co-located. You know, we're spread across the county, and that may not be the best way for us to do business anymore. We basically just put buildings where they happen to fall, and we never really looked at how an integrated look at how we do operations for the county will impact how much it spends for us. If you take a look at my department, I take care of buildings across the county. I need to have 22 vehicles to get my people to all the different buildings to take care of it. If we were more centrally located or whatever, I might be able to get rid of some of those vehicles. And when you look at it, it takes 22 minutes to drive from my shop up to Neenah. It's 10 miles to go from my shop to the jail, to Parkview, to Coughlin, to the fairgrounds. You know, that all impacts operational costs. So a master plan can start taking a look into how we do all those kind of operations and identify those costs. It helps with providing a long-term solution rather than short-term visions on how we're going to take care of a problem. We can look at sustainability, efficiency of the space, energy needs, you know, other types of resources, and we're going to have the employees and the staff and ultimately the county board involved in how we take care of this. So the benefits of a master plan would be improved resource management, enhanced functionality, strategic alignment, reduced costs, both short and long term. I presented to you a while back that we have, like, over the next 10 to 15 years, $360 million of deferred maintenance. That's been identified in our facilities condition assessment. So, you know, we're going to be looking at some significant expenses in the very near future. And hopefully, if we have a master plan and we have a consolidated and integrated use of all our facilities, it's going to provide a better experience for our constituents and the people that use our services. One of the big complaints I've got is we have buildings in downtown Oshkosh. That's not a very friendly place to get to. There's a lot of one-way streets, parking's a problem. And if you're coming from the north part of the county, you've got to come down the freeway, then you have to drive all the way through town. There may be a better way for us to take care of that. So our project update. We funded the project in summer of 2024. I put out a request for professional services out in fall of 2024. We had 3 firms that responded. All 3 of those responses were evaluated, and Venture Architects was selected to conduct a study. They have done a number of master plans and space needs assessments for counties around the state. They listed 6 of them. I found out that there's probably 9 of them that they've done. And I've contacted those counties, and these guys have done good work. And everyone that I contacted said that they're using their plan, and it's been a big help for them with their facilities. So where we are right now, November of 2024, We met with Venture Architects. They've collected our building information, our drawings, our facility condition assessment information. They've met with our staff to discuss the problems that we've had and what we know about our buildings. And they've taken that back into their offices, and they've kind of assimilated everything to a point now where they're ready to move to the next step. And the next step will be in early January. Actually, I think later this week, we're going to be meeting with them to review what they've collected, what their understanding of their information is, and we're going to provide any necessary clarification that they're asking for. In about 2 weeks, they're going to start conducting interviews with the department heads to find out what the future needs are going to be for the departments, where their deficiencies are in their buildings, what they're hoping to accomplish going forward. In February, we're looking at having them take all that information back, come back, and then work with us, my staff, to come up with some options. In March, we're looking to have a workshop with the facilities committee to go over the information and the options that they've developed and get some information or feedback from the committee on how we should probably proceed. In April, they'll take that information back and they'll refine it and come up with more definite options. In May, we're hoping to utilize a workshop to go over the preferred option with the county board and to tour the potential needs on your annual tour. In June, the preferred option will be finalized, and then hopefully we'll get it through the county board to pursue that option, which doesn't mean that we're going to do, all of a sudden we're going to drop a huge capital improvement project on you. It's going to be an option with phases and a direction how we're going to go. And then we're looking at trying to merge all of the master plans for like the airport, the parks, solid waste, highways, all into one big master plan so that we can give a picture to you all to see what all of the capital improvements are going to be needed across the county. Because, I'm sure you guys are having some frustrations where one department comes with a capital plan, it gets approved, and then somebody else comes up with one that seems to be maybe more important, but now you've already committed funds earlier. We're hoping to give you a picture of this is what all these strategic master plans for all of the departments get rolled up into one county master plan, and then you can make decisions based on priorities that you all set and what the cost of the projects are going to be and which way you want us to go. And I'll open it up for questions.
Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just applaud Mike and his team. This went well with the facilities assessment study, so this is a perfect timing for this. Mike has also talked about, our work has changed, technology has changed. You didn't mention that, but the way we administer, you did the services, and something happened, a few years ago that changed the work picture with the pandemic and some of our folks working from home. And I think, I don't know if Ethan mentioned that at the facilities meeting that, asking some of those folks, some of those folks will be working remotely, and that's not going to change. And so with the scope of the work, the nature of the work, I think it's, it was perfect timing for this, and thank you very much.
Supervisor Holt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a big fan of facilities master planning and strategic planning for facilities needs. So thank you for doing this. I think it's really important. It's difficult getting everybody to see and align on big master plans like this, so I hope you'll bear with us. But I guess my question for you is, what will the process be for developing a methodology for prioritizing? You mentioned that that'll be part of the work. But one of my questions, given that I've done this kind of stuff in the past, is who decides on what basis things will be prioritized? And I don't mean the individual expenditures, the individual capital expenses. I'm referring to the methodology specifically. And so I'm wondering if you can help us with that, or if you can keep us apprised of that over time, if you don't know the answer yet.
My thoughts are, is that we're going to come up with and tell you what we know is what our space needs are. We're going to tell you what buildings work, what buildings don't work. You all set policy. So I'm thinking that you're going to have to help, we're going to help you set the priorities. You know, I'm just going to go rogue and say,
I like it.
you all may say the parks are the most important thing. So if we have a countywide program, master plan, and you see what the facility needs are, you see what the parks needs are, it's going to be up to all of you to kind of set what the priorities are that we need to address. You know, I think that's where the role is for you guys, is to tell us how you want us to set the priorities. You talk to your constituents, you know what their priorities are. You know, what do we do first? You know, do we build a new courthouse? Do we build a new administration building? Do we create a new park out in the western part of the county? Do we,
Yeah.
you know?
I believe your partner in this will be able to help establish methodology, which is, I think, the guidance we can better support, right?
Right.
Like, I would love it if you all would do the churning and help us figure out, here's a recommended prioritization based on the methodology that you
Right.
approved, right?
I'm going to say,
Okay.
I believe the administration will come forward to you saying, we think we need to go in this direction. But we need you guys to say, no, we want you to go in this direction.
Got it.
Supervisor O'Brien.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, I was wondering what drives this time schedule here, and what happens when it gets off of schedule?
Well, what's driving it is pretty much the budget schedule. You know, we've got capital plans that we have to come up with that you all will be looking again next fall. So we're hoping that we can have some kind of plan to start affecting the capital planning in the next CIP presentation. And if it goes off schedule, you know, I'm a firm believer that I'd much rather take our time and do it right the first time than rush through it for an arbitrary deadline and come up with something that's a little bit flawed. So this is our proposed schedule, and it's based on trying to get something together so that it gives us time to come up with a capital plan that you can approve next fall. If for some reason we run into difficulties, or when we talk to you, or we talk to you know, the facilities committee, and there's much more discussion on how we want to address the priorities or things like that, then I'm hoping that we take our time to do a full discussion and not rush into a plan that is half-baked. So does that answer your question?
Yep, thank you. Yep.
Who checks the furnaces in this room?
The last time I set the temperature up, I got yelled at to turn it back down.
Okay. All right. Not having anyone else, we thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Next is presentation of capital improvement project for the construction of a new airport T-hangar facility.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Appreciate the time to present to you this evening. Up on the screen, I'm here to talk about our 2025 T-hangar project. Back in 2022, the county board approved a project to construct T-hangar facilities on the airport, the first airport-owned hangar facilities that have been constructed on our airport, or first county-owned hangar facilities since the late 90s. So we were successful in getting those facilities constructed in 2023, which opened earlier, opened early in 2024. That project was a $3 million investment by the county, supplemented by $1.3 million in federal and state grant assistance. So as a whole, that project built 20 new T-hangar units on the field, with the associated apron and taxi lanes that you see behind me on the graphic. As part of this project, we had designed this additional 9-unit T-hangar facility and also bid it out as an alternate in that bid package. At the time, that was not awarded nor constructed due to the available funding level that we had back in 2022 when we bid that project. So now coming back here in 2025, we're looking to construct that last 9-unit T-hangar facility, the associated apron and taxi lane that would service those new T-hangars. In addition to that, and you can see it in blue on the diagram behind me, we're looking to include in the scope replacement of a 70-plus-year-old water main that feeds the entire east side of the airport over there. We've been having numerous issues with that water main in the last several years with a lot of different breaks and repairs that have been very costly. So we're looking to include this now in this project as well. And with this project, in the footprint of the 9-unit building, we'd be removing one hangar and relocating another hangar for storage purposes. Those hangars are getting to the end of their useful life. So on the project funding, back in 2022, when we awarded the 20 units that we ended up constructing, which are now full and occupied on the airport, we only had a small amount of grant funding associated with that project in relation to the project we're bringing forward today. At that time, we had the very first year of our bill, bipartisan infrastructure law funding, available to us, which was fiscal year 2022. We used a portion of that funding on the initial project, but we still have funding available and needing to use from that first year, fiscal year 2022 bill allocation that we're going to look to roll to this project. With this funding scenario, we've got just shy of $1.9 million of our fiscal year 22 through 25 allocated grant funding that was allocated by the FAA specifically for the Whitman Airport. $375,000 is a mix of entitlement and state apportionment, which is both federal types of grant dollars, a small state grant match, and the ARPA request that we intend to bring forward at the next ARPA Commission meeting for the Spirit Fund request of $455,000 for a total estimated project cost of $2.75 million. So the big difference between the project that we constructed in 23 and this project is it's the exact opposite of a funding mix of grant dollars to county investment. So the 16% being requested through the ARPA fund of the total project versus the 84% of grant funding. Bill funding is unique in our world as opposed to traditional FAA AIP, so AIP is Airport Improvement Program funding, in that bill funding can be used for revenue generating spaces like hangar spaces. So this is definitely a unique opportunity to maximize the benefit of that type of funding versus our traditional funding that we can't typically use for these types of spaces. This project, again, like I mentioned, is majority grant funded. We have a current hangar waiting list of 80-plus folks out on the airport for looking for hangar space. And with existing spaces, that ends up being a pretty lengthy wait, as I know those on the Aviation Committee can attest to, and those have heard me speak before can understand 80 people now has only grown. When I started at the airport, it was approximately 40 to 50 people. And another, project justification is this generates an additional long-term revenue stream for the airport. I put 50 to 70 years, but the construction of the 20 units that we just got done with in 2024, I easily see those lasting 70-plus years in order to provide not only the space to serve the demand, but also provide long-term revenue stream for the airport, which furthers our goal of self-sustainability. Some of this has already been covered, the first bullet point there, but in 2022, we only had a limited amount of bill funding available. Now we have 4 years of bill funding available. That water main on the east side is definitely in need of replacement. We've been pushing with the FAA and the state to include this in our next big capital project in order to get it majority grant funded, because it is a private line that is owned by the county and serves the airport where it comes onto our property. And one of the biggest points of emphasis of this project, we have $620,000 of our fiscal year 2022 bill funding that has a grant application deadline with the FAA of June 1st of this year now. And so with this project, if we are not able to move forward on the hangar project, we have $620,000 of grant funding that will expire if not under grant by June 1st. And it might seem like we have a lot of time between now and June 1st, but with the timeline of the State Bureau of Aeronautics and the FAA and all their processes on the back end, once we get final funding approval and get this project out to bid and then bids open early this year, we don't really have, this is kind of the finite amount of time to get the grant application in and get it done by June 1st. And one thing I'll point out then on the hangar project, because I know back in 2022, it was a big ask to the county board, $3 million. Certainly understand that, but the county board supported it, and we're very appreciative of that. We're able to serve the demand out of the airport to a greater extent. We haven't built hangars out there since 1998 until 2023. With that project, it was $3 million county, $1.3 million grant. This time around, we're asking for $455,000 from the county through the ARPA fund and $2.3 million in grant assistance. So when you kind of balance those two projects out, that ends up being $3.45 million county investment and $3.6 million in grant funding. So building 29 new units in total on those two projects, which once was one project. Now we're looking to build those additional 9, but building 29 units plus 6 pad sites on that site for future development, for future private investment, private build hangars on that site is about a 50-50 split in county investment versus grant funding. So I certainly consider that a big win for maximizing our federal and state grant dollars that are available to us. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Presentation's well done, sir. We're talking about this BIL money. Is there a need for other hangars to be built in the near future beyond this one that you're proposing?
Well, we do have a 80-person waiting list for hangar space, so this would only put a small dent in that demand. However, at this point in time, this is the project that we'd already had designed, ready to go on the shelf, as it were, and is able to capture that $620,000 of the 2022 grant funding that is set to expire.
Okay, is this BIL money going to be available in the future? In other words, if the opportunity here is so great, is there thought to maybe we should building an additional hangar utilizing this funding and get more of it at this point in time?
Above and beyond the 2022 through 2025 bill funding we've got earmarked for this project, we'll receive one future year of bill funding in 2026. So it was a 5-year allocation. So we will receive, and each year the FAA adjusts that allocation based upon their funding scenarios and their actual math that they allocate to each airport. So we don't know what our 26 bill funding will be yet. but it'd probably be in the range of around $700,000, which is what 2025 was.
So you're saying it's probably worth the risk to wait another year to apply for that funding for the additional hangar you're looking at in the future? As opposed to requesting more money now, can we do that and build 2 hangars?
Well, we're maxed out on our bill funding that's available
Okay,
to us
all right.
currently.
That answers my question.
2022 through 2025 is what's available currently.
All right, very good, sir, thank you.
Supervisor Holt.
Thank you. I have a question. I've heard a lot of history around hangars and the request for funding. Can you clarify what the return on investment is? How long does it take us to cover that investment in revenue that you're generating?
So we haven't set a rental dollar per month yet on these hangar units. If approved, they wouldn't be open until sometime in 2026. However, we are working with our finance department right now on reevaluating all of our hangar rents and our land rental rates. And we are due for an increase in 2025 to those hangar rental rates of existing hangars and our land leases. And so we're evaluating that currently with our finance department. We typically, those are set in ordinance currently. I know the county's going through a recodification effort that will move those into I understand, a rates and charges schedule. However, we typically update or increase those rates about every 3 years. And so on this project, $455,000 is the ask from the ARPA funding. And if we were to set the rent, so let's just say $400 per month, currently the units we just built are at $350 per month plus tenants pay the utilities on them. But if we set them at $400 per month, that comes out to $43,620, I believe, annual revenue with periodic escalators throughout the future. So we pay back the ARPA investment in about 10 years.
It's a pretty good investment.
Supervisor Swan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you said you didn't have rent set for the new 9 hangar project yet?
Not yet, and I would, with the recodification that the county's going through right now, I would anticipate that being in the official rates and charges, is that the right terminology, Marianne? Rates and charges schedule that the county board would approve. Okay.
Do you think it's fair to, when you have subsidized rents like we do, to use that 80-person waiting list as a means of justifying construction of new hangars? Because I think you're holding back the market forces. The supply and demand curve is not in equilibrium here. If you would raise the rents sufficiently, you'd be able to weed out the people that don't want to pay those higher rents and get your waiting list down to an acceptable level. I mean, you're selling us on an 80-person waiting list here, and the reason is that we have that waiting list is because rents are so low. They're not at a level where, an outside investor, a private investor would approve a project like this or would move forward with a project like this. We need to get rents up to equilibrium. Any comment on that, please?
Sure, and that's an effort we're undertaking right now with our finance department and the county executive and the leadership team. One of the things I'll point out is we have a variety of hangar space on the airport. We have some hangars that were built with asphalt floors that are in pretty rough shape with sliding doors that were built in the 1970s.
I'm talking about the new ones. We're asked to put money forth for the new hangars, and you won't have that waiting list for new hangars if you get rents high enough to get the market, into equilibrium, the supply and demand curve in equilibrium here, It's just, to me, I don't know why it's so hard for us to see that. Thank you. Thanks for your time. That's basically what I have to say.
Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was wondering if you knew the costs for of the total program or project. How much of the costs were for the water main versus how much are for the hangars?
The water main is estimated right now at $180,000 for replacement.
And so I know probably just enough to be dangerous about the funding stuff that you all have. You said the bill money is available to use for things that generate revenue for the airport, but that's pretty atypical, correct?
That is pretty atypical. So traditional AIP funding, which is FAA entitlement dollars, FAA discretionary dollars, and those sorts of funding sources, don't pay for revenue generating spaces at airports. They're not only that, but they're a very low priority for typical FAA funding sources. So yes, correct.
You say, next year you say, hey, I want more of this discretionary money to build hangars, and another airport is saying we have a safety thing, the safety thing's always going to win out.
The great thing about Bill is that it's allocated specifically to each airport, and so that money is ours to utilize on eligible projects, which this is one. And the biggest difference is that we can use it on a revenue generating space. If we tried to utilize our FAA entitlement dollars on revenue generating spaces, there's certain caveats to that, but typically it's not allowed. But if you can get the FAA to agree to that, you're off of any list for discretionary funding for at least 5 years, and that's one of their kind of ways to say we very much discourage you spending your money on that. But Bill is different.
Okay, and then so some of this project is for the apron construction or the taxiway reconstruction. Are you able to like segregate those for funding purposes, or would the FAA consider the apron or the taxiway component an integral part of the revenue generating piece?
So the diagram behind me is color. It's kind of harder to see, but it's color coded in blue, which is taxiway and taxi lane. Anything color coded on the diagram is reconstruction or new construction with the project. And then in yellow, closer to the building, which the building is in kind of a red color, yellow closer to the building is the apron dedicated to the hangar itself, and the taxi lanes just get you to the apron. So those are segregated for different types of funding, like I mentioned in the this slide. We've got some entitlement dollars and some FAA state apportionment dollars allocated to this project through the Bureau of Aeronautics as well. So on the 2022 project, we only utilized a small portion of our bill funding. We utilized about $150,000 of our 2022 bill funding, and the FAA was able to come up, or the state was able to come up, because the state doles out state apportionment money on behalf of the FAA. The state was able to come up with a big chunk of apportionment money on that project to help us construct the apron areas and the civil taxi lane portions of that project that we were able to save some of our bill money for a project like this for that 2022 money.
Great. That sounds fantastic. Sounds like you've been very creative in stacking these funding sources together to get us something that maximizes the opportunities. One more question. So are these the 9 that you're proposing to build? Are they going to be heated?
That is the plan. It is an alternate in the bid package. That's how we did it in the 20-unit facility. So if we have sufficient funding to heat them, that is the plan, to offer 9 units of heated space, and then the tenant would pay for the heat, the gas utility.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Supervisor Bender.
I was listening to your last airport meeting, and you were talking about charging to be on the waiting list, and I think that would be a great idea. I would charge like $50, and if they rent from you, maybe give them $25 back towards their first month's rent. I mean, what you have is 80 people on a list. I'm thinking of taking lessons to fly a plane. Well, maybe I'd get on your list. You know what I mean? And what you really have is 80 people, but yet you said when you call them, a lot of them say, well, put me back on the list, but I don't want a hangar right now. So if you actually charge the $50, you'd have a true list of how many people you really have waiting instead of a speculator. You have 80 people, but maybe only 20 of them really want to rent a hangar at this time. So I think it would be better for the airport in general to not waste the time calling people that really don't want one. And if they're willing to put $50 a year on, and you call them and they say, well, no, I don't want a hangar, well, then they forfeit their deposit. But if they rent a hangar from you, then give them half that money back.
So we're looking at just that right now in the last aviation committee. We discussed, excuse me, We discussed one option for charging an annual fee for being on our waiting list. One of the things we discussed is it'll give us a true measure of who's real on the waiting list and who's just on there because it doesn't cost them anything. So I do believe the 80 plus people that are on there now isn't necessarily a true sense of that demand because it doesn't cost them anything to be on the list. But we're reevaluating our policies of vacancy filling and maintaining our list and finding ways to maintain that list a little bit more efficiently, in addition to looking at charging for being on the waiting list, which, $25 a year is a nominal fee for something like this. And there are other airports in the country that do that.
Thanks.
Okay, I thank you very much. I see no other names, so I thank you. So at this time, we'll have our county executive, John Dame, will come up and give us an update on the closure of UWO Fox City campus.
Yeah.
And I'll let you introduce your
All right,
guest
thank
there. I
you.
know who he is, but I'll let you introduce.
Yeah, I've asked Executive Tom Nelson from Outagamie County to come with us today. We've also asked permission for him to stay during the closed session, so we would give a presentation of what we've been working on. We're both here to answer questions. So Tom, thank you very much for coming up. Let's see if I can actually work this thing, hey, how about that? So tonight's presentation, I'm going to try to make this quick. Everybody should have this on your laptops as well, so if you want to follow along, I'm not going to read it all, so we can get into the meat and potatoes of things. So tonight, I just want to present an update in open session, to provide negotiations and other specifics in closed sessions, how we're going to do this, and then we'll be taking questions in closed session. So one thing that's really important is to really set the committee of jurisdiction. Who is responsible for doing what on this project, and how does it get to the county board for our portion of what this is. So what this basically says, UW Fox City's Board of Trustees is responsible for closing out the agreement with UWO and the use of the facilities, the current use. That also goes through UW Extension, which is the liaison committee for the Board of Trustees. Those who don't know, the Board of Trustees is comprised of supervisors from Outagamie County and Winnebago County that are there to oversee the operations of the building. So we need that board to get us out of the negotiation and the agreement MOU with UW Systems. And that is the liaison of the Extension Committee. And then Facilities and Properties after that will be, that's the committee that's going to decide what we do with the building after the agreement is closed out. And IGA, if you don't know, that's intergovernmental agreement while we're going through this. So the major issues that we really got to focus on right now is how do we close out the education that ends in the spring semester of 25. So it's coming upon us rapidly, and that'll come up again later on. How do we close out those intergovernmental agreements? A little bit tricky, but I think with the proper guidance, Board of Trustees will do a good job with that. We have a lot of things to consider. And what happens to the property will happen after that intergovernmental agreement is closed out, and that'll be more from facilities to recommend to the county board what we want to do. So key assets to understand are Barlow Planetarium, about 26 years old. It still has some upgrades that need to be done. I think we've gone over that. Weiss Earth Science Museum, the Community Arts Center, Child Care Center, all learning spaces, the engineering building, and certain IT infrastructure necessary for counter systems. So this is actually where our IT fiber connects with Outagamie and also connects with the city of Menasha. So we have some government infrastructure that's really important on this site. So what have we done? Now I know we use the word began on this, but this is a presentation that we've given to facilities, and we also gave to UW Extension. So we're a little bit beyond began, the word. So don't let the word began throw you off. But we really are starting to understand the intergovernmental agreement. Very tricky, originally with UW Green Bay, correct? Yes. Yep. And there's a whole bunch of things in there that that it's kind of hodgepodge. We've understood the use of the building outside of the University of Wisconsin. Board of Trustees had an agreement with UWO at the end, but they had agreements with other community partners as well. And who did they have agreements with? For instance, how many school districts does the Barlow have agreements with? So we now understand the scope of how many people have been using this. We have engaged with other education institutions for potential sale or partnerships. We have done a lot of work, and we've kicked a lot of tires. I will say that. We began the process of inventorying what's in the building. Supervisor Binder, you've said a lot of times, if you can imagine, we own the campus, and if you turn it upside down and shook it, everything that fell out is not ours. So it's really figuring out whose is what and what do we do with some of those assets. For instance, Community Arts Center, we own the stage, we don't own the curtains, the lights, or the sound, so there's some challenges there. And begun to understand deferred and other maintenance issues. Mike, I believe we figured out roughly between the two counties $800,000 a year to mothball this thing if we don't figure something out. Roughly $800,000 a year if we get stuck with this thing to do nothing. Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation grants, that is the $2 million multiple people have heard of. Me and Executive Nelson have said, well, there's two counties here. Does that mean $4 million? So far, no luck on that, but we're not giving up. We're not giving up. That's right. That's right. So we're going to keep going on that. One of the things that was concerning in the beginning is it said that are or will no longer be used for academic purposes. That phrase was vetoed by the governor. So currently, that is not an issue. So if we look at something not necessarily university system, but something else, could still keep going on. We engaged WEDC the day that we heard the closing was happening, so we got really ahead of that list. We've had a tour with their director, our point person with WEDC, has been in contact with both Executive Nelson and myself. July 9th, Joint Finance Committee released the funds from the state of Wisconsin. Counties are now working with WEDC on acceptable uses of the funds. Fond du Lac County has had some frustrated, some rules have changed. They have stated that maybe we need to match these things, so we're going to try to hold them to that original intent. And the grant could be up to $2 million per county, right? Yes. Yeah, we're gonna fight for that. So, with that, I would ask Chairman Egan for us to go ahead and go into closed session. And
Yes,
I've asked for a few staff to stay and as well as Executive Nelson to be allowed.
Before I do, I'm going to read this. It's a rule that I put together with some of different ones. It's a ruling of the chair that under County Board Rule 18.4, attendance is to mean present in person. This is supported by County Rule 11.6, which requires supervisors to be present at their desk, and the official designated County Board Rule to vote. Under Robert's Rule of Order, attendance is meaning voting privileges. My decision is further supported by County Board Rule 9.15, which requires equal remote access for county board members and by the public. Since the public is not entitled to attend a closed session, a board member remote attendance is not equivalent. So that'll mean that anyone that is on Zoom will not be able to, that'll be turned off. And then we'll be going into closed session. The county board chair will entertain a motion to convene. Second. Just wait a minute now. I got to read this whole thing to make it legal. So give my due here, 'cause to do it fair. County board chair will entertain a motion to convene the county board supervisors into closed session for discussion on the closure of the UWO Fox City campus under Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, Parent 1, Parent E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specific public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. No action will be taken on this item after closed session. So, motion by Barry and seconded. So you got it? Okay, so now we'll have to have roll call. gotta do roll call. Yes, you have to. Said roll call, so.
Wait, what?
Right.
Sorry, I'm not paying attention.
I know you guys are talking over there instead of paying attention.
Making sure we're doing it right.
No,
Right.
you can do it through the sheet. Yeah.
Why don't you just do roll call and then you'll know who's present and who isn't.
Oh, you don't have everybody in?
If you want to.
No, they just need to vote. It's a recorded vote, is all it's recorded. Yeah.
So just vote then?
You have to take Egan's,
No, that. Can't
Yeah,
you just
voting to go into closed
call their names? Just call their names. That way everybody will be. Oh, okay. Supervisor Cox?
We are voting to close session, is that correct?
Right. There is no other vote at this time. So if you want to go into closed, vote yes. Who do you need yet? You got them? Okay, we are in closed session as of now.
Wait.
Whoops.
Supervisor, can you vote?
Close the back door there.
Yeah, there you go. So the only ones that are in here now are people that are joined with the county in any way, shape, or manner. I asked the county executive, he said it's fine if the clerk wants to stay in here. Otherwise, it's just the corporation council, the clerk, you're in here, that's for sure. He's with anybody, and Mike's back there, so we are set to go, county executive. Everything should be set.